Call the order, receive evidence of proper notice. Clerk?
The County Board of Supervisors June 15th meeting notice and agenda was posted in the Government Center building in 2 places, posted on the county website on June 4th, 2021, was published in a legal newspaper the week of June 7th, 2021. In addition, on Friday, June 4th, 2021, at 11:56 a.m., the Office of the County Clerk distributed copies of such notice of meeting to supervisors and media via email or mail.
That's appropriate notice under the meetings.
Thank you. Roll call.
Brad Olson,
Here.
Doug Rowdy,
Here.
Warndahl,
Here.
Nelson, Tracy LeBlanc, Dan Rook,
And Rook is excused.
Mike Pritchard,
Here.
Karen Kelly,
Here.
Kim O'Connell,
Here.
Amy Middleton,
Here.
Jay Luke,
Excused.
and Duncanson. Here. Russ Arcand,
Here.
John Bonifaz,
Here.
Joe Demmeling.
Joe is also excused.
He wanted me to pick him up. He called me this morning and then he called later on, said he was in too much pain. Just couldn't do it.
We have 12 present.
Thank you. John, we want to lead some Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, gonna have a sheriff, I think sheriff is out in the, oh.
He's here.
Oh, there he is. We're gonna have a tribute, in honor of, Ann Raycheck that just passed away. Ann was a local girl here from one of the Haney family from Balsam Lake. And, he, served as a sheriff and was really remarkable public service. It's to have a tribute to her. Did you want to say something now, Sheriff Watt?
Sure.
I would just like to say my condolences to the family of former sheriff and state assembly representative Ann Raychuck. She served Polk County with honor and dignity and passed away. So my condolences to her family. And if we could take a moment of silence for her honor, that'd be great. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jay Luke called me and he said that he hired Ann to get into law enforcement. Said she was just remarkable. I think her funeral is a week from today, next Tuesday.
Yes, in Balsam Lake here.
Number 5, if that item comes up, please raise your hand. Approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Supervisor Olson, second. Kelly, there is going to be one change. I'd like to postpone 32-21 resolution until next month. That still needs to run through general government, so we're just going to postpone that till next month. Any other discussion on the agenda?
Number 19.
Yeah, number 19, it would be actually. We'll strike that. Seeing none, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried. Matters offered for adoption on consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
That's a move.
Doug, second, John. Is there any discussion on the matters offered under the adoption of the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. We're at public comments. Do we have some public comments?
There's one public comment to be made.
All right, please state your name and where you're from.
Mary Curran, Cushing. I know there haven't been much interest lately concerning the CAPO issue. on the Polk County Board, but I do want to remind you of another aspect of this that has never really been dealt with. For those of you who've watched the news and realized what had happened in Waseca, Minnesota, most of you are aware of a hog operation that had a big fire, thousands of pigs. So just to remind you again that CAFOs, concentrated confined animal feeding factory operations, are not farms, and we're not, protecting farmers by allowing these things here. If those people had been nearby, if they were living on the farm, if they were farmers, they would have heard those 12,000 pigs screaming as they burned to death. Because most of us who have had animals actually care about them. And we are aware of what's happening, especially in a very high fire situation of dryness and so forth. They must have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for for building that operation. But make no mistake, it's not a farm. It's not a farming way of life. Those people don't live there. It's a factory. It's industrialized animal factory. I don't know if that's really, what anyone wants to hear. They have to find with their own heart, whether that's decent or cruel or whatever they can view the situation as, but it could happen here. And I'm sorry that there have been people that have bulldozed and rolled over other people in the board and manipulated things so that this was never taken to the full degree of standing up for the people in this county in the way that it would be most helpful, including the farmers who are going to get rolled over and destroyed. And I'm not going to keep talking, but look into your hearts. Even if you're a farmer, you have to harden your heart a little when you're butchering animals. I know that. I'm familiar. I've been involved. But the 12,000 pigs screaming as they burned to death, that should have been noticed. That should have been picked up somehow. Because that should have been a farm. It wasn't a farm. It was terrible confinement and cruelty. And on that.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
No, that's all, Chris.
Hearing none, public comment is closed. Number 9, we have endeavors. Leslie and staff is here tonight to, come on up. And meeting with endeavors a couple months ago, and it was important to ask them to come tonight and share us what our relationship is. And
I'm Leslie. I'm from Endeavor. This is Denise, and she's going to have a breakdown of what the always did.
Endeavors is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have been providing services for adults living with disabilities since 1965. Endeavors started not as a the Adult Development Center by a loving mother with a child with Down syndrome. They wanted to provide social interaction for her child. After a couple of years, the Polk County Development Center moved to now where the Polk County Head Start is located. When the new Justice Center was built, we were very fortunate to have a new location built for the growing need of adults with disabilities by Polk County. Our clientele is growing each day with the needs of the community. We maintain a license with the State Department of Workforce Development, day service program which serves adults living with the most significant disabilities to promote personal growth and enhance basic living skills. Next is our Day Friends program, which serves those individuals living with dementia, advanced aging, and those with similar needs. Endeavors gives well-deserved respite to the loving families and caregivers wishing to keep their loved ones home as long as possible that are living in St. Croix, Burnett, Barrett, and Polk. Endeavors pre-vocational services program provides job skills training and community employment to adults with disabilities. Our goal is to promote personal growth and provide meaningful employment and educational opportunities for clients. Endeavors also has hardworking job crews that work throughout Polk County. We have a lawn-mowing crew that mows 35 North Wayside and the Welcome to Wisconsin sign on Highway 8. We have numerous hardworking cleaning crews that go out weekly to local churches, community centers, also local parks and beaches, and many more. Endeavors also has a group of 8 that work at the Polk County Recycling Center with a combined 143 years of loyalty. Our DVR program provides help with finding jobs in the community, from searching for a job to filling out all the necessary paperwork, job coaching side by side with the client until they are comfortable enough to be on their own, on their new journey in life. Endeavors provides transportation for our program participants, as well as Polk County and surrounding areas. This service includes wheelchair accessible vehicles, door-to-door pickups and drop-offs, and one-way or round-trip services. Endeavors also does medical transports for those unable to drive to important doctor appointments on their own. Endeavors also has a beautiful year-round greenhouse in Milltown, where our participants go to work on job skills to help create a path to integrated community-based employment. We can honestly say we have the best job with the most loving and caring participants. Each participant of Endeavors walks into the door each morning excited to be there with the biggest smiles and all with hearts full. Just happy to be there, not being judged due to their distance. Endeavors is their safe place. We would like to invite you to stop in and see our center. We think you would all be amazed by our center and the multiple ways it serves our local communities. We would like to share some letters and finish up with 2 videos.
That's okay. We'll have Cindy read some letters I had sent in by caregivers, some staff, and the clients actually put their input into this bill as well. This one says, "Hi, I am Michelle Miller. I want to tell you my husband Larry has dementia. My children live with us to help take care of him. I reached out about 2 years ago with Day Friends. They are wonderful, special people who watch him 3 days a week. I have learned with Endeavors. The whole facility is great. They have become our extended family to help us with our journey with Larry. I can tell you when he goes, he's happy and Gabby, which is good. It gives him it gives you a peace of mind that he is safe and well cared for." The Polk County Board from the family of William Gus, aka Bill G. Bill has worked at Endeavor since June of 1999. He has loved every day of his employment. Bill is a worker bee with very strong social needs. Endeavors provides an opportunity for Bill to shine. Bill has a lot to deal with, and the staff at Endeavors has always been very open to new behavior management plans, changes over the years that Bill's psychologist has suggested may help him. 1.5 years ago, Bill was changed on all his psych drugs and slowly transitioned into day services. Endeavor's staff was key to the success or failure of the new plan. The plan was an absolute success thanks to the patience and understanding by the staff at Endeavor. As a family, we have seen the happiness and joy brought about by his opportunity at Endeavors. He's achieved levels of function and coping I have never thought possible. Thank you, Endeavors. We are forever changed as a family due to Bill's positive employment and day services. Sincerely, Vicki Andrews. My name is Green Duck. I work on the production floor. While I've only been here for a short time, I cannot imagine my life without these wonderful people I work with. To me, pre-vocational teaching my clients through class time and hands-on learning to develop work skills and social skills to obtain and keep a job in the field. They are always excited to see what job crew they get to go on. They put so much love and pride into all they do. I enjoy watching my clients grow and learn and actively want to learn each and every day. but also there isn't a day I don't learn things from them. They have the biggest hearts and even bigger positive work attitude. These amazing people get up every day and come to work no matter what's going on. They come in with positive attitude and willingness to work like no one I've ever worked with before. I am so proud of each and every one of them. They worked during COVID and just rolled with the changes in the world around them. While others stayed home, still don't want to work, they are here every day giving it their all. These guys are my heroes. They are just so wonderful to work with. I wish you would come here and see for yourself how amazing these clients are. Thank you. Hi, my name is Jody Larson. I have worked at Endeavor for 15 years now. The reason I was able to get to be here is that I had a job at Good Sam in St. Croix Falls. And I was fortunate enough to be working and meet the staff and the clients, and they came to me at Good Sam. The minute I met the clients, I asked where they were from, and I knew this is where I wanted to be. They are nothing short of amazing. They always come in with a smile on their face and so happy to see each other and the staff that works here. They work hard and are very proud of themselves when they have taken on a new job, figured it out, and seen the end product. They love when we have a chance to take on a new job. For me, working here really is kind of an honor. Working with the clients has taught me so much. They have such big hearts, so kind, and so willing to help. Without this place, I think my life, as well as theirs, would be quite deprived of so much good. I love each and every one of the clients here and only want the best for each one of them. Polk County Board members, for the opportunity to share my story regarding Endeavors and its programs. It seems unbelievable that my daughter has been involved in Endeavors for over 20 years. Starting in high school, Heather was able to work with job coaches and work within the community. She worked at Polk County Bank shredding documents for pennies, leaving when the bank changed hands and her job was eliminated. Endeavor's job coaches helped her find other jobs in the community to try. She enjoyed stints at the recycling plant and cleaning local people. As Heather began having more difficulty remembering to complete jobs, the center adjusted her schedule and duties, and then began more and more to work within the center on the work. About 6 years ago, Heather experienced another change as her group home was shutting down. She experienced a breakdown of sorts. We hadn't been prepared for what came next on her journey, but Endeavor worked with us once again. It became apparent that Heather could no longer complete the tasks on the work floor. It was then that I became aware of another program. I knew Dave's services was a program for adults with more severe mental and physical conditions, and to consider options for letting Heather visit her friends there on her bad days, released from the workforce. Following the hospitalization, we were giving startling news. Doctors felt that she was experiencing early onset Alzheimer's disease. Devastating news for a 41-year-old. But once again, Endeavors helped our family. It was at this time that I became aware of another program being offered, Day Friends. At that time, I think the program had 3 clients, and the quiet atmosphere and home-like setting was just what she needed. She began to enjoy going to work again. Since then, the program has grown, and the services many more adults with dementia. The program has changed from merely a daycare setting to an active community of adults with dementia, still being involved in experienced life as much as they are able. There are 85 to 90 different types of dementia and each one is different. Day Friends offers respite individuals of all types. Administration has made sure staff is trained properly to assist clients in appropriate ways. Leslie Larson introduced me to the ADRC, and through that, the Dementia Coalition. I've been able to go to conferences, get training for myself, share information with community members, speak on the radio, put up signs, and many other activities that help me to be the best caregiver I can be. She encouraged occasional family gatherings at the center before COVID. This gave caregivers a chance to visit with each other, providing a loose support group of sorts. Actually, that is one area that might be thought for expansion of services. a memory cafe support group for caregivers of clients. This program has been Heather's life. In her worst moments, she cries to be at work with her friends. It may be 3 o'clock in the morning, but she wants to go. Her bus driver greets her with a smile and words of encouragement each day. Staff treat her with respect and meet her needs, whatever they might be on any given day. Now that COVID is under better control, Day Friends has community events planned for clients daily. They visit different places every day, different experiences, something positive to do, something to look forward to, something to remember in the moment. These experiences are important and may be helpful in managing some of the progression of Alzheimer's. Someone experiencing dementia will have good days and bad days. Endeavor's Day Friends program plans in-house activities in addition to outings, and clients can choose which to participate in. Staffing is crucial, and some clients need one-on-one staffing. So providing it is costly. Space is costly. Meeting needs is costly. We all know that, but the programs offered at Endeavors are so very important and so very much needed. I want to thank you as a representative of the people of Polk County for your support, and now and over the years. Did you know that Polk County Endeavors program is the only one offering 5 days a week, 8 hours a day service? It's ahead of the rest of the state. We should be proud of ourselves for the foresight and support of such a service to our community. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. There is so much more I could say. Endeavors is meeting needs of the valued citizens of our county. Valued citizens, thank you very much. As a parent of a young man who attends the day program at Endeavors, we would like to express our heartfelt appreciation for the services they provide to our sons with developmental disabilities. At Endeavors, he has the opportunity to spend time with friends, develop skills, and build his self-esteem. He leaves the house each morning with his lunch bag in hand, a big smile on his face, excited and looking forward to a full day of activities. He informs us using sign language that he's off to work. Without this excellent program, our son's quality of life would be severely diminished. Not attending Endeavors for a good period of time during the pandemic and being isolated at home was a stark reminder of how important the day program activities and opportunities are for our son's overall well-being. We look forward to continuing to be a part of Endeavor's family for many years to come. Sincerely, David and Heidi. My name is Jody Schaefer, mother of Kelsey Dom. I think Kelsey has been going to Endeavors for at least 13 years, give or take. I do not know what we would do without you. Endeavors gives Kelsey the opportunity to do something beneficial, something to feel useful. She needs to feel like she can accomplish something other than sitting at home. If she were home, she would get bored. This also gives me a break from her too. And with Kelsey being diabetic, the workers there are very good about making sure she is taken care of and watching her blood sugars. Hopefully she will be able to do fun things again out of the building after COVID goes away and we can continue our lives. We appreciate everyone that works there. I can't think of a better place for her to be. Sincerely, Jody Schaefer. Dear Ms. Larson, it would be my pleasure to tell you what Endeavors means to Michael Olson Jr. and our family. We love Endeavors and its entire staff of kind, loving, caring people. We could fill several pages with true happy stories. For this situation, I will give you a few bullet points so that the others may speak. The love and respect given to the clients pours out to the community. Endeavors is crucial to this entire community, not just the adults and families impacted. A place to have friends and fellowship, a place to find self-worth, a place of dignity, a place of fun and laughter, a place of safety for all clients, a place that gives clients a sense of purpose in life. The list could easily go on. I will conclude with the fact that Michael is happy to go. He returns happy. All people should be so loved as the clients at Endeavors. The staff is also blessed with love and respect from the clients and their families. Endeavors is crucial. Dr. Michael Olson.
we're gonna finish it with 2 videos, just short videos after. Which one's first? Doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having us.
I've known Bradley for 40 years.
Oh, but isn't it just like?
Thank you.
Can I just pull this out of here?
Hey, County Board Chairs report. I had a few business people this month we met with, just talking about Polk County businesses and businesses concerned about getting help. EDC things this month dealt with. And then I wanted to ask Malia to give us just a brief update on where we are with the Stair. I get a lot of phone calls on that. I think I'll let Malia just touch on that a little bit.
Sure. So briefly, we've got the two different actions. One is an action where the Friends originally sued the DNR, and then we intervened, and we had a hearing on that both last week, and then yesterday, Judge Black, we had I guess what you would call a small victory. In that case, the DNR has to file a record, and then everybody gets to argue about things. And in that case, the issue is whether or not that January 6th letter saying, hey, county, you've complied with the terms of the MOU, whether that is a final decision of an agency, specifically the DNR, that would then give the Friends standing to sue the DNR. And our position and the DNR's position is it's not a final determination because it didn't do anything. The county board then later passed the plan itself. And so the Friends of the Stair in that particular case argued that they should not have to respond to our motion to dismiss the action because we don't think it's a decision right for review. And the DNR also filed a motion to dismiss. And the Friends wanted to delay by saying, no, let's have the DNR file this massive record first, and then we'll argue about it. And Judge Black said, no, we're going to allow the county and the DNR to move to dismiss this action. Now, Friends, you need to respond to their motions to dismiss. And now it's set on a briefing schedule. The other action, which is the direct action where the Friends sued Polk County, that one was also set on a briefing schedule. And it looks as if Judge Black is attempting to ensure by the way he's scheduled that any decision ultimately would come before the October 1st deadline of the start of the very first equestrian season. And so with that briefing schedule, the hope is we might have a resolution for them. Any questions?
We'll give you updates on it as they come. I'll just kind of keep briefing you guys. I just couldn't say that like that. So. Thank you, Malia. County Administrator's report.
Okay, first an update on the Clam Falls Dam. If you recall, a few months ago, it was discussed, would the county be interested in possibly taking over ownership of the Clam Falls Dam? No decision was made, but we said we would discuss it if certain conditions were met. The first and probably the biggest hurdle of those conditions was getting a grant from the, or getting money from the state to repair the dam. And I'm happy to announce that Rob Staffschulte, our state senator, as well as Gay Magnifici, our assembly person, were successful in getting it put into their budget. That doesn't mean it's going to happen yet because the budget has to go to the governor and he may throw the whole thing out or he has a line item veto. But the good news is they were successful in at least covering that hurdle. The other items that we need to ensure happens before we can discuss this again is securing some amount of funding from the Clam Falls area, from the property owners so that they have skin in the game, acquiring reasonable liability insurance, and then also Northwest Wisconsin Electric Company, their partner Renewable World Energy would have to contribute a significant amount of money in a fund that would allow us to maintain it, repair it, tear it down later in the future or whatever. So those are some things that are happening. But I do want to give a shout out to Rob Staffschulte and to Gay Magnifici for delivering on what they said they would do. And that was substantial. And if as we go forward, we'll come back to the Board of Supervisors and we'll discuss whether or not that is a good decision to take over the dam. Next, regarding the American Rescue Plan, I can say that the $4.25 million, which is the first half of the payment to the county, has arrived. It is in our bank account. County staff, with the help of the WCA, is still analyzing what the guidelines are for its use. We have a clearer picture, but not totally clear yet. In fact, we have discovered that it is possible that funds these funds can be used to recoup any revenue losses that the county experienced. So there's a complicated formula that our staff is working on to say, have we lost money due to COVID this year or in 2020? And if we did, that amount of money can go into our general fund, which would mean it would be much more flexible in how we use it. So we are trying to figure that out. We're also trying to figure out if that doesn't happen, what specifically we can do. Finance committee will be meeting, I think, next week, or if not next week, the following week, to discuss those funds in our banking account. We will hopefully invest it into something very conservative and safe, and we can't draw interest on it. Finally, one of the priorities the board has is improving broadband, or I might say improving internet throughout the county. We are going to be sending out an RFP, request for proposal, from companies to do a county-wide broadband or internet study. Purpose of this will be to identify the actual needs, where they are and what the challenges are, and then giving us some priorities that need to be addressed and some insights on technologies that can be used. Broadband is great. It's terrific, but you can only run that fiber optic cable into certain places, right? And so there are newer technologies that are out there that we think we can get high-speed internet to our children, to our healthcare providers, to the general public and businesses. That's what we'll be doing here in the next few weeks. We'll be sending that out, getting an estimate.
Any questions for the administrator? Confirmation of appointments. You guys can decide whether you want to do all at 12 at one time or not. We have an appointment. Supervisor Kelly is going to replace Supervisor Demling on ADRC. The administrator is making appointments of Helen Swanson to LEPC committee, and Jerry Waller appointed to the Veteran Service Commission committee.
I have one question. What's the LEPC committee?
It's the local emergency planning. So, you know, Lisa McMahon.
Yep.
And she has been on it before. This is
I want to do a good job. Yeah.
We have a motion to approve.
I move that we approve all three appointees in one motion.
Confirm them all. We got a second by Rowdy. Any other discussion about the appointment? And not all in favor by saying aye.
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 Number 13 would be from Chad, update of departmental statistics regarding the methamphetamine epidemic.
So before you is a 3-page scorecard, which is something the executive committee asked us to create. This is the first month we created it. Understand data analytics is new to Polk County, so this is the first shot at something like this. But what we tried to break it down was into categories, graphical depiction. Tried to make it fairly simple to understand. This is May 1 through May 31 of 2021. Present each month for the prior months. The first graph is the substance abuse charges filed by the district attorney. There's a difference between arrests and charges filed. These are ones filed by the DA. It broke down what kind of charges and how many. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 have to do with arrests and jail bookings. We had total bookings, and we broke it down to the substance abuse of choice by the people arrested for substance abuse crimes, residency versus non-residency, repeat offenders versus first-time offenders, gender, and then age groups, 20 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 51 and up. And then the last one is current treatment court participants and which of the 4 stages each is in. Right now, I don't have the judicial numbers in there. That's the last piece. It's going to take me a little longer to figure out how to collect those and develop an information stream. This is something we produce each month. I expect the format will change. It's my first whack at the format, so you guys decide you want to see something depicted differently or you want some different data. The one thing I want to express to you is number one is not going to match the bookings and arrests because this is spot in time reporting. So often law enforcement arrests somebody, it's not actually criminally charged in subsequent months. Sometimes if you see charges by the DA, those have been cases under review for months, 6 months, sometimes a while. So don't expect parity between those two graphs because that will happen. Because if there's feedback, if you want the format to change, let me know.
I think this is outstanding, Chad.
I agree. And I think it's a great start and anything that anyone wants to see or questions about that, we'll run this through executive and just get some updates on it. But I think we'll just hand this out every month here at the county board. We'll do this. Thanks, Chad.
This is the first time that we really got something in hand that we can take to our constituents. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chad on this? Tanya, update community service division.
Good news. All right, so last month, I think I reported we were a little nervous about some cases spiking up. Good news that we know today is that that is not going back down now. So back in May, we had 255 cases. To date, June 1st until today, the first 15 days, we've had 25 positive cases. So we're seeing that trend go down, which is good news. The other good news is that we have vaccinated over 10, we've given over 10,000 shots. We are at about 40% completely vaccinated in the county. Our percentage of positivity is declining. We're at 3.6%. State average is 1.6%. So we're not quite with the state, but good news that it went from 7.3 to 3.6. So that's nice to see that. Our state rate for vaccine is at 44%. We're sitting at 40, so we're just a little bit behind there. We have the mobile vaccine clinics going out. The sheriff has let us use the command post, and that's working out really well. We're hitting all kinds of places in the counties to be able to vaccinate people right on the spot there. We have had 18 clinics, including 4 home vaccinations and 2 migrant. So we're really focusing on migrant workers as well. Some farms are contacting us now to have us come right on site to do those vaccinations. So with the mobile clinics, we've done 484 vaccinations. We also offer walk-in clinic here every Tuesday, and we've done about 30 since we started that a couple weeks ago. Additionally, we offer free COVID testing. So if somebody doesn't have a resource or a way to get tested, we have them come around back and we'll test them right in the parking lot in the back with the saliva test. We started that on May 3rd. We've done 151 tests and of those 27 have been positive. We also held our volunteer appreciation picnic last week at Wood Lake Park in Frederick. Steve Warnall will be my lovely model with the appreciation t-shirt that he received from Steve, Sharon, and Amy did a lot of volunteering for our clinic. So they were invited to come and join us and celebrate all of the hours that they put in. And I don't have the statistics, a lot of hours put in by volunteers. It was a successful picnic, so we were able to appreciate them. Vince came and talked, Bill Oliva talked from the HHS committee, and I think everybody had a good time, enjoyed themselves. That's it. Any questions?
Questions for Tanya?
I think you said at the picnic there was 80,250 hours volunteer work through all the clinics. 80,000 hours.
Volunteers and 46 staff between the two counties throwing that together. I think on average, it was about 45, it took us 45 people to run the clinic every week. Plus the highway. But they, we couldn't have done that without them, without using that building too.
Yeah, I just was wondering, the COVID testing that's being done here, is that a rapid test?
It's a PCR test, so we get sent in. We see about a day and a half turnaround.
And this morning at our HHS meeting, you said that our state average of testing is like 44%. You thought we were at around 40. I got a suspicion that we're a lot higher than that, that there's a whole lot of people out there that have done testing elsewhere that aren't counted. I mean, me and my sister, she's 90 years old. I don't know that I had it, but like she lives in a group in Osceola, and I'm sure she's not counted.
So it depends on when you fill out that form. We have to report that to the state database, the Wisconsin Immunization Registry. If you indicate that your permanent address is here in Polk County, if those databases across the nation talk to each other, it might take a little while for it to get to our database, but it should eventually end up, if that's your permanent residence, it should end up here. The same for if we had a Minnesota person come, we ship it over to Minnesota for their registry. So it may or may not show up depending on what you put down for your address when you got the vaccine. So it's all, it has to be signed off by a nurse, David, and then we have 24 hours to enter it. So that's how we have that.
I just think we're a lot higher.
And you mean vaccinated, not tested, right?
Correct. Vaccinated.
Other questions for Tanya? Thank you. We have a motion to go, and committee of the whole is going to be probably a while. I don't know if anyone needs a quick break or we just go right into, need a motion to go into committee of the whole.
Take a quick break.
Take a minute break.
10 or 5.
Okay. We'll take a 5. So we're calling meeting back to order. We need a motion to go into committee of the whole. So move. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Or do we need discussion on that? I guess we do. All right, so all in favor going to committee of the whole?
Aye.
Okay, we got, Malia's gonna do the first one. But she's gonna keep it short.
Yeah, this is short. Okay, so you know how at the beginning of the meeting, the clerk indicates where they publish the notice of the agenda and how they made sure that the public became aware of the meeting, and then I say, yes, that complied with the open meetings law or something to that effect. There's a reason why we do that, even though it kind of seems odd. And the reason is a violation of the open meetings law by an individual supervisor who attends a meeting knowingly in violation of an open meetings law could be subjected to a forfeiture, a fine. And one of the defenses to that forfeiture or fine is if a member attended the meeting under legal counsel's advice. So by saying, yes, you complied, clerk, with the open meetings law in noticing the agenda, I am, by doing that, insulating each of the supervisors from that individual liability. So it's my job to make sure that when we have topics on the agenda, that we notice them sufficiently so that if there were a question later on, you would be able to defend that. And so that leads me into sort of that personal liability concern, because one of the things that some of us have been hearing, some staff recently, are supervisors saying publicly, oh no, I've talked to the supervisors and this is not going to pass, or this will pass, or there's enough support for this to move forward. That means, that implies that somehow various supervisors have communicated sufficiently to predetermine the outcome. Now, my guess is people are posturing. They're saying they've talked to some of their folks, and I know that you have relationships and you might have common interests and you want to talk about those, and generally that's appropriate. But when you get to that sufficient numbers to impact the outcome, that's when you have to be very, very careful. It would be hard to prove, but there is something called the walking forum. I've talked about that before. So it's something where you really need to self-police as elected officials and know that, of course, it's appropriate to talk about and maybe have some ideas going back and forth, but steer away from any conversations where you are asking for another supervisor's, how are you going to vote on this? You can perhaps guess what they're going to do based upon other comments, but again, do not have a meeting outside the meeting, even if it's a series of smaller conversations, because that could down the road impact things for a supervisor as an individual in their capacity. And so that then leads me into who is the client. So for Mr. Loso and for myself, most of the time, the entire county, the organization is our client. So our ethical obligation is to do what is in the best interest of the county as a whole. There are times, however, where it's hard to tell who the client is. And when we are serving as legal counsel for maybe one of the subcommittees of the board or a department, our job is to make sure that there is not a conflict. And our job is also to make sure that our personal policy opinion should not play a factor. So for example, there many, many years ago, there was a time when our office represented the zoning board because they had denied a conditional use permit for a non-metallic mine in the middle southern part of the county. And I had to defend that decision to deny that conditional use permit. At nearly the same time, in a northern part, a place called Ivers Mountain, I was defending the Land and Water Resources Department issuance of a reclamation permit that allowed a non-metallic mine. So I was arguing for a mine in one part of the county and against a mine, not because I personally have an opinion one way or the other about that topic, but because the client, in that case, in one, it was Land and Water Resources Department, and in another, it was the zoning department. Once the county board sets a policy decision in motion, then that policy decision has to become what we advocate for, like the Stair Trail. I know that not every county board supervisor is happy about the plan that was ultimately passed by this board. And it's not my job or Mr. Loso's job to say whether or not we think what you passed was good or bad. Our job is to defend the decision that the full board made. So when supervisors stop by my office and the county board has already passed something and they say, you know, I just in confidence, Malia, in confidence, I want privilege to attach to this. And then you go on to say something that is contrary to what the county board has already decided. There's no privilege that attaches to that conversation. My ethical obligation is to disclose that to someone else if it is in the best interest of the full county. And I have to look at the best interest based upon what the county board has already passed. Now, if a year later something different passes, then my job switches around. But just like the situation where I was advocating for a mine in one part of the county and against a mine, understand that when it comes to determining who the client is, it's not always a very simple answer. So do you have any questions? Does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah.
Supervisor.
How many supervisors could you talk to? So if I was talking to other supervisors on an issue, besides myself, how many could I talk to?
Here's the problem with that question. Let's say you talk to one and then that one talks to another and says, well, I talked to Brad said this, and then that one talks to another and they said, well, I talked to him who said that this was said and this was said. You could talk to one supervisor. And if you are actually having that conversation of how are you going to vote? Not that it would, but it could, that chain could go on. And once you hit that negative quorum, in other words, enough for somebody, that group to either defeat or pass any particular policy issue, then you have tacitly, maybe even unknowingly, violated the open meetings law. So you have to be very careful. If another supervisor asks you, how are you voting? You say, well, I'm leaning one way. Then you're not saying I'm absolutely, or I can't have my opinion changed. But don't put your fellow supervisor in that position to ask them outright, how are you going to vote on this issue tomorrow night? It's just, again, it might not violate the open meetings law if it's just the two of you and nobody else has talked, but you don't know where that chain has gone or where it started from and what information that one individual might already
Do you think the beginning of his question was probably appropriate to just talk to yourself? Because you said, talk to yourself, you're fine.
have. And it is a sign of intelligence to talk to
I'm
yourself.
good at it. So okay, that he's okay to talk to himself.
Absolutely.
So what if you, excuse me.
Sure, go ahead, Tom.
So what if you say there's 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans, and we always vote the same way?
You can assume.
So you just assume that.
These are nonpartisan offices, so that shouldn't even enter.
Oh, really?
Well,
Okay,
it shouldn't.
it shouldn't, but I'm
Well-
just saying.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to leave our partisan politics at the door. Because these are nonpartisan offices. And people should think about that, I think, if they're considering bringing their partisan politics into the meeting. These are nonpartisan offices. And in a perfect world, which of course it is not, people would respect that and keep that in mind.
I would caution you in indicating that people should leave their partisan politics at the door. And the only reason is these are absolutely nonpartisan offices, but you have a fundamental First Amendment right to express your views. And if they happen to align with a particular party, your obligation is not to leave your other life at the door. It's saying you don't need to declare a party in order to run for office.
I think the KFU issue was just a prime example of what you were talking about. Because, we had so many people, we were even at Unity High School, and everybody was, well, what did you think of what that one said? And there was discussion from people asking us, and just a good example of what we have.
I had a question for you.
Just so you can see how I deal with like, what you talk about a citation. Big citations.
I think it says, I have to look, but I think it says not more than $100, not less than 25. I'd have to look again, but it's nominal. It's nominal. It's. But you could also then overturn the decision that was made if a decision was made in violation of the open meetings.
Then you know if it's in your budget, Doug. Then you know if it's in your budget.
There you go.
And it has happened here.
Yeah, Kim, why don't you explain what?
With the Golden Age matter.
Yes.
It did happen to us, and the whole county board got fined, and then they dropped the fine. It was $25, then he dropped it. But it can happen, and it did happen. Somebody brought it.
And it's embarrassing to the board and it's embarrassing to an individual. I mean, we just don't need it to happen. If it's, why break a rule if you know,
don't have to.
if you don't have to.
So you get caught up in one of these things and, famous sayings that are just between you and me, and a fence post or, just between you and me.
Fence post talk.
But when it gets down to nitty gritty, you're under oath, you gotta be honest with you.
Sure. But I mean, they couldn't give you a citation and then put you under oath to find out if you violated. They would have to have reason to believe. So somebody would have to say, Supervisor Warndall violated the open meetings law on this day by doing X, Y, and Z. So that they would have to have, probable cause in order to issue that citation.
When you say they, Kim, I mean, who pulled you guys in to have you guys reprimanded in that fine? Who was that did it to the board?
That was a private
It was a
citizen
private
acting
citizen.
as a private attorney general. So when there's an alleged open meetings law violation, a private citizen cannot file a lawsuit until they first have asked the local district attorney to file charges. And if they say no, then they have to ask the state attorney general's office. If they decline, then a private individual is statutorily authorized to file an action in the name of the state against either the governmental body or the individual that's on the governmental body if they believe a violation is. The only times I've dealt with it here, it has been a private citizen acting in that capacity under the name of the state after they've asked the DA and the Attorney General.
2006, the state district attorney was in this room. And the board was charged with certain individuals that had open meetings without different groups in different places.
Hopefully that was before my time.
That was before your time. The county was facing a large fine.
I think we're good then, right? Everyone's kind of got a handle on this. All right, thanks for Leah. Mo, you're up next, number 16. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Evening. We're going to go through a presentation on the Government Center mechanical update. What we're going to focus on is the scope of work for this
Can you
project.
say who we are?
Yes, my name is Mo, director. I have Ann with LHB here, and also have Rod Polk, our facilities manager here. Thanks.
Nathan Reed is on the call. He's our electrical engineer.
He was at our meeting last week.
He was on the video.
Okay.
But Ryan Thorson.
We're going to focus on,
Yeah, go ahead, bring it up.
which one? It's the bottom one. We're going to focus on scope of work and how we got here in basically 3 different categories. One, critical life, which is the things in the project that we have to do with it, we must do. What's recommended with the project, and what would be a good idea to do once we have the ceilings and everything opened up, which makes sense to do. And those things, we have to, so we'll explain a couple of those. We have a lot of slides we're going to go through here. We're going to go through them a little quickly on some of them, but if you have questions, please ask us. And to start out, how we got here. Next slide.
Let's ask the questions real time. Don't save them. So stop them if you need to stop them.
We may not touch on every single bullet point. We'll make the highlights, but if you want us to go back and elaborate on something.
You should have a copy on your desk of the presentation so you can review. Back in November 19th, general government interviewed firms for this. They chose Wold Architects to go through with this. Wold then met with the departments, county staff, evaluated on-site visits to overlook at our facility. And back in July 2020, the Wold report went to the committee for. In 2021, we hired LHB to move forward with design of this project, look more into detail and overview that. And with that, we had 5 master plan meetings with LHB. They had a kickoff meeting, site investigation. They reviewed the Wold study also, did site visits, made the recommendation priority list and cost estimates for the project. And this is this next step we're at is project scope, not right now. What did analysis show us? It showed us the government center is 47 years old, or the structure is beyond useful life. Efficiency, it's hard to maintain. We have ongoing maintenance issues. We have roof leaks with our ballast roof. Customer service issues, security, ADA, leaking with that. Inefficient mechanical systems, the boiler, the chiller, the generator, lighting. We have issues with technology, with bandwidth. Going more into it, I'm going to talk more on what we have. Next slide. The roof replacement. The existing roof is 1974. It's a ballasted system. It has 20-year life expectancy. We've had it now for 47 years. It's rubber membrane with makes.
So I'll touch on, as Mo and I are going to take team this, I'll touch more on the reasons. Well, he's touching on what the existing condition is, and then I'm going to touch on what you'd be getting if you chose to upgrade it. So with a new roof, we would replace it with a ballasted roof system. A ballasted roof means you have layers of insulation over a steel decking typically. with a membrane, a rubber membrane, and you can pick the thickness and that determines your warranty. You're gonna have rock then, like you currently do, and that rock just keeps that membrane intact versus gluing down the membrane. So we would stick with that membrane system. As I mentioned, you can, as we get into design, start working with the committee members to determine what you want to proceed with, and that would determine the thickness and the warranty. Those are all design decisions.
Couple of pictures of the roof showing the rock ballasts, we have bonding issues, with subsequently these buildings. Boiler system.
Got a question?
Yes.
On the roof, do you have an approximate cost?
We do, and we're saving some costs until the end. If that's okay.
The thought is let's go through scope of work and then we'll go through what these things all cost. If for some reason we don't want certain things in the scope of work, we're going to keep the budget as a separate issue.
We do have that.
We do have that prepared and ready to hand out to you guys. The boilers, we have two boilers, one's 1974, one's 1998. They're steam systems. They have life expectancy of 25 years, so they are out of date on that. One's approaching that very quickly. When new, they're 80% efficient. Currently, ours estimated at 70%. The current system cannot keep up with humidity, moisture issues in the building.
What you're going to see with these bullet points is we'd be changing to a hydronic system. A lot of the infrastructure is already there to change over that boiler to a new style system. It does have a smaller footprint. It is more energy efficient. You can see it's looking to, depending on what we specify, it could get up to 95% efficiency, which means that you're going to save on your operating costs and energy efficient, using less energy as well. Again, you'll see a consistency between what was specified when this building was original, a lot to this slide, to what you would get now. So this one, you would get a 25-year life expectancy with proper maintenance. And we put that on there because as the county has been obviously extending the life of your current unit, the more that you're doing the proper maintenance, the longer that can run, but it does take wear and tear and a lot of maintenance to do.
Next slide. This is our boilers on the other side. Our heating coils, what this shows you is these were heating coils that were leaking. We had to remove the fins to patch those leaks, making the system less efficient. Ventilation units are original to the building. They were expected to last 20 to 30 years. They're now 47 years old. Increased maintenance on this. Hard to find parts for this equipment now. We actually still look at eBay to search for parts because the manufacturers don't make them anymore. So we use parts. The chiller, that's 1995, 26 years old. 3 out of the 4 are inoperable right now. That's why we have cooling issues in the building right now. We are trying to get another compressor, get it up to 50%, but that's probably 6 weeks out at the equipment. And it's not expected that we don't have a good outlet for the rest of it.
So we would replace the existing ventilation unit and you would get a 20 to 30-year life expectancy. That gets into design specifics. We could possibly go higher depending the threshold of what we want to spend. Energy recovery is a big part of what we specify, meaning that you take and capitalize on heat that's being generated in the process and use that to reheat your building. That helps save on energy costs. And then occupant comfort, that's a big one. We want to make sure that what we're specifying improves the occupant comfort, creating better zoning within the building, doing that by VAV controls. And then we would obviously improve air quality with.
Can you explain what a VAV control is? I'm sure no one knows.
Yes. Now you're quizzing me as an interior designer on a VAV, but it's a
variable air volume is what that is. And what that is basically just a little mini damper that's connected to the system to help have a control point at the point of distribution. So as an example, in a single or a bank of offices, private offices, you'd have 1, maybe 2 VAV boxes to supply that air and control it.
Thank you, Nate. And so
You're
those
welcome.
would be installed when we take the ceilings out. A lot of this work in the base scope is going to require all of the ceilings to be removed and all of those VIBs to be placed strategically where we want those zones. As I was starting to touch on the air quality, there's a lot of very good filters out there that help improve the air quality of your current building. Moving on to the chiller, LHB made a different recommendation than Wold had in their report for the chilling system. We are recommending to go to a DX system that's actually part of your air handling unit. It's built into the specifications of that unit. It also has a 20 to 30 year life expectancy, and it helps improve a redundancy of systems. So you're having to provide fewer systems with one unit.
These are existing chillers and our air handling units.
We would start looking at how we can capitalize on your current penthouse and the fact that things are getting smaller. We're already, as we were touring the facility, how can we start placing things to phase, shutting down a certain portion of the building to get new pieces in while utilizing that square footage site.
Building automation, our current system, we have pneumatic controls. We have issues with air leaks. They have higher energy costs to run these systems. They require an air compressor to manually put air through there to actuate the vents on there. Requires a larger building footprint and tubes. It's really an obsolete mechanical system, and it creates higher maintenance costs maintaining that system.
I might ask Nate to touch on these digital controls. More up his alley.
Yeah, so the digital control systems of today, a lot of them are, when we say digital, it's truly a kind of IP-based system so that it's very easy to capture data, have real-time data to better manage and operate a facility. So that's probably the biggest advantage to the new systems, and they have much finer control ability versus the pneumatics. If you can imagine trying to have an air compressor style damper or control and trying to be very tight in the tolerances, whereas a digital control, you can dial it into a lot of zeros and ones. So programmable from a scheduling standpoint, remote monitoring opportunities. You have some of that today with the pneumatic, but the remote monitoring is very useful for facilities. Obviously, if you don't have staff on site 24/7, but have the ability to remote in and see if there's an issue or if there's an alarm, big advantage for both the facility and for your maintenance staff. Trending data, for an engineering perspective, the trend data is as good as we could ask for in terms of trying to understand how the building's operating. With that data, you can much better operate to be more energy efficient, control the facility, and provide a better cost savings over the life of the system. And then the electrical metering benefits, again, everything being digital and electrical needs today, we want to watch how we're managing the electrical system and see how much energy we're using to try and keep costs low on a year-over-year budget.
They drove our current controls and existing supply. Our generator is 1974, 47 years old. It had a life expectancy of 30 years. We've got a lot of it. We had four major failures in the last 5 years. The motor on it is an old John Deere 320 for you guys that know that. Our backup, it's our backup for 911 and our critical vaccines in the health department. And it's currently a diesel unit.
With the new generator, we would be looking at focusing on the important life safety measures, the things that this building serves that are critical, being the 911 and the health and human services. We would be looking to specify, again, it would have about a 30-year lifespan, but we would be looking to go to natural gas in lieu of diesel, which is less maintenance and it also is more energy efficient.
Next slide. And this is the old generator. It's in the old sheriff's department. Technology, existing systems are Cat5, low bandwidth network infrastructure failures. They have a lifespan of about 15 to 20 years. The fire alarm system is currently 1974. It's an old system. It has a 25-year life. It doesn't meet current safety codes, nor or does it have voice automation?
So with the new technology systems, this is another opportunity you'll see in our lists that you're going to have all the ceilings exposed. So now would be a great opportunity to capitalize on ceilings being down and saving on labor, that you're not having to come back and disrupt and replace ceilings that you're replacing as part of like a ventilation replacement. It would be a 15 to 20-year life expectancy. And we would be going from a Cat 6 hardwired, a Cat 5 to a Cat 6 hardwired, and then a Cat 6A wireless access point.
Yeah, and I just want to note that this is purely from a cabling standpoint. The actual network electronics is not, that's outside of this scope of work, and those lifespans are 3 to 5 years typically. So the cabling plant can last a little bit longer, but just as a note, the technology that rides on that cabling changes out every 3 to 5 years.
In the fire system, when we go through the list of what's critical and what we need to do, the fire alarm system is not on the must-do list because we are grandfathered in, it is working, but it's one of those that we have the opportunity with all the ceilings opened up, do it now at a better cost.
Let's also touch on that new systems. When we touch on the fact that it doesn't meet current life safety code, new systems require voice enunciation, meaning that not only is it the loud, high-pitched alarm, it's also a voice alarm, and then the light alarm as well for people of all different styles to basically know that they need to get out of the building. It would have a 25-year lifespan. And Nate, anything else on that?
Yeah, I think that the other piece is just the controllability and the digital nature of it, that you can know exactly where an issue resides down to the device. So it speeds up response time, which is the most critical piece on a fire alarm system.
So in your fire system there, is that a sprinkler system then you're talking about?
Nope, this is only fire alarm. So it would tell you that there's a fire within the building that you need to evacuate. And what Nate was saying is you get a fire alarm panel now with the new system, and it'll designate exactly where it was tripped, so that when the fire department shows up, they know where to go within the building to extinguish that.
Does the building have any sprinkler system or not?
It does not. Your current building is a type 2B, meaning that it's non-combustible materials. It does not, if you were to build it new today, it would require a sprinkler system. However, you're grandfathered in again, and unless you're building on an addition and exceeding allowable square footage, you would not require to upgrade it.
Thank you much.
Security existing systems, we have minimal restriction around here, which means just about anyone can walk in our building and get to different offices as we go around through here. We don't have zoning to separate staff from customers. We have dark areas around here with our in the parking areas, and also limited security surveillance, which we would need 2 more cameras in the areas to cover areas that are blind spots.
We would be looking to identify the locations for card readers, meaning every staff member would, instead of a key, receive a badge access, and it could be programmed so that they could be given certain access to different areas of the building. There could also be zoned access where you can section off areas that you don't want the public to get to, but staff can still get through. It creates a more safe and secure environment. The other thing we looked at is the fact that if there's staff turnover, you're no longer required to get those keys back. You can just program and change their access. I'm touched on the zoning. You can program schedules to the building that doors can shut automatically based on your building schedule. You can do intrusion alarm or duress alarms for certain people if they need the police or sheriff to come and check on something. They're notified right away. We were talking about the benefit of having customer service counters so that when customers arrive on the main level, they could be greeted instead of closed doors. As Mo mentioned, we could have a safe and secure, counter that they could come up to and do their transactions. There's also some improved site lighting. We have discovered that the staff parking lot is dark, and so we would recommend to improve the lighting within that area of the site to improve safety, as well as adding surveillance cameras.
The interior lighting currently is fluorescent fixtures. 1974, some have been replaced with new fluorescent fixtures. These fluorescents are high energy consumption. The current light switches and that do not meet code for occupancy. It's ongoing replacement with replacing lamps consistently. And health safety with fluorescent lights is deemed.
Yeah, we do a lot of research with well buildings, and research has shown, as many of you probably know, that fluorescent lights can trigger migraines and affect the health and well-being of the occupants. So what they're finding is that LED lights, which we're proposing, while you have the ceilings down, now would be a great time to, again, replace the light fixtures and improve the benefit of that is improving the health and well-being of the occupants. It also will save on your energy costs. The state of Wisconsin has a great rebate program so that all of the fixtures that you purchase, you then get a kickback from the state, from the taxpayer dollars that are given back as an incentive to reduce your energy costs. You can simulate daylight with a higher Kelvin level with LED lights. You will be required with that to upgrade your switching controls. So the on-off switch would no longer pass the code. You would need daylight sensors for a room like this where there's windows, so the lights automatically dim, reducing your energy consumption. And also, as I'm sure you've seen, occupancy sensors or vacancy, so the light shut off or turn on depending on when people are occupying the space.
Some examples of the current lighting we have. Slide. Existing building deficiencies, we have water pipe leaking on electrical panels. Our chases we've talked about before. Our pipe chases are on the exterior of our building. It was an old system that was designed that warm air would go up the chases to help keep the pipes from freezing. What you find is people block those vents out because they have cold air in the wintertime coming up through those chases, which causes our piping to freeze. And we have slushing issues with those things. The elevators don't meet code currently. ADA issues with our narrow doorways. And one of our goals here is to improve the customer service as part of this.
So
Sorry, Ann. The other thing we looked at in the study, and it's a line item in here, we can discuss it a little later, as long as we have the ceilings and everything done. One of the things in the full study looked at was the boardroom layout. And one of the questions with the scope of work is this the time to reconfigure just this boardroom here? You know, our layout now is with these individual desks and people have their backs to each other. At one time in our rules of order, it said that every supervisor was to face each other when they had conversation. We took that out when we had COVID naturally through here. So is this the opportunity to improve that, not only that, and realign the technology so we can better film our board meetings and update that so the public, we have a better spot for public interaction at our meetings. So that's why that line is there, and we'll talk about that.
So we do have a recommendation for a opportunity, as we discussed with the ceiling and we'll mention, of improving the seating layout, relocating technology, possibly replacing some windows, but then also redoing the carpet, maybe some new furniture that's more functional for today's meetings, and then any other painting. If I go back up, to correct the pipe issue, we would recommend to demolish those chases, insulate the pipes, and ensure that those chases have proper insulation to make sure that they're not going to freeze any longer. It sounds like there may be some pipes that would also need to be replaced as well from leaks and damage that's been eroding. For the stairwells, it would require handrail modifications and handrails themselves, and then guardrail modifications. If you look at the width between the current guardrails, they don't meet code. They need to be 4 inches, and I believe they're about 8 inches. And then you also need for mobility a handrail throughout the entire stair, which you have not. So those are fairly easy things to correct. Signage for the elevators would bring you up to code. That's another fairly easy one. Enlarging the doorways is going to be a little bit more difficult because you have a lot of block walls throughout, but it's definitely achievable. That's going to allow you to maintain a 32-inch minimum clearance for ADA for wheelchair access. Obviously, we like to go a little bit larger than that, but 32 is minimum. And then at those service counters, we would look at possibility of both bulletproof glass and then wanting to make it welcoming though. And we listed some of the departments that we would recommend placing those at on the main level.
This is just a couple of pictures of our existing doorways, and that's a customer service window example that's in the current Justice Center. Restrooms, our existing restrooms have challenging access to the plumbing chases. They are galvanized piping, which we have to chase down leaks and go further into the wall to get fix those. The clearances don't meet ADA issues. And the current bathrooms can be expanded and meet this in the current footprint.
With the layout reconfiguration, as Mo mentioned, you have square footage we can capitalize on. We would be looking at maintaining the same number of toilet fixtures, but we would be looking at getting the proper wheelchair and mobility access outside the stall. And then you require a 5-foot turning radius within one ADA stall, handicap stall, and as well as the sink. So we would take all those into account. You would get grab bars as needed, counter heights where they need to be reachability heights for paper towels. All of those things would be incorporated into the design.
And this is a picture of the bathroom right here, each level. These are the pipe chases right here. This is how they're configured on each level. They go to different offices. And that's a picture of actually our front entryway. And I just want you to remember that picture now as we look at when we talk customer service counters on these walls that are more inviting where the public knows to see. Next slide. What does the customer see when they come into our building? Besides the receptionist, usually there's no staff present. You kind of walk in there, have closed doors. You get a lot of people wandering through our building still. Going through that. I touch again on the existing boardroom was the stuff I talked about.
I think we've highlighted on everything here except for the one level service for customers. So with the recommendations we talked about in our meetings, moving ADRC up to the main level so it's more accessible to the customers and they're not having to find their way throughout the building to their current location. And then also relocating the veteran services to the main level as well. And we feel that we can achieve that with placing them in shuffling some departments without reconfiguring those departments. So minimal to no cost.
And if you remember the Wool study, it talked about moving the boardroom upstairs and that. And we've had several meetings with staff and the division directors. And COVID happened, working from home, and we think we can still create ADRC coming upstairs, the veterans office coming upstairs, leaving the boardroom intact, and doing it with the existing offices we have. So our main renovation for that is going to be our customer service windows to help everyone come in on the main floor.
And with that, I would suggest that we consider that wayfinding element, and a big part of that is signage. So identifying those windows with another element, because different people find things in different ways. So we'll want to look at that in various layers of how we help people find their way to those service counters.
So back to the analysis again, our building's 47 years old. We have systems past critical life on this. We have ongoing maintenance issues, customer service issues, wayfinding, security, safety, ADA, leaky, frosty windows on that, and staff safety concerns. Inefficient mechanical systems, boilers, generator technology. Next slide. So moving forward, we broke it down into 3 areas. What is needed now, we must do. These are critical things for what's recommended. These are what we recommend to help our new systems last longer. We replace them and move forward. And the last one is what's smart to do as long as we have the ceilings and going into the walls, what makes sense. These are not have to do, it can be done at a later date. As long as we're doing the renovation, it makes sense to do them now. But, so on the first must do, these are the critical ones. We have.
So Mo, can you slow down a minute? Because I can't see that. So I just want to make sure everyone's on their page.
If you've got the right page.
Page
13.
Loaded the wrong.
I don't need it, but I just know I can't see it if I was.
The only difference of what you have is Mo was gonna save the numbers for later, so we didn't get into the weeds, but there's an added column for the estimate values that you were requesting. We had two different presentations, so that one was uploaded, the different one was printed, but we have those values.
And we can take this home to study.
Yes, and I'll have a handout with the cost for you. Because I don't believe
Doesn't have it.
it does not have the
No.
cost in there.
The
That's what
hand-
it's supposed to be loaded.
The handout with the costs should be easier to read because they're not on the slides, they're on a full page.
Where's the handout at?
Right here. I'll get you this right now. You want to hand it out now or you want to go through the list?
I think we should hand it out now.
So I can, as well as doing that, I can summarize, and maybe go through what we had in the must do, what we had in the recommended, and what we had in, or have in the smart to do. So hopefully you can read this, but it goes through everything we talked about already. It just takes out some of the bullet points as reminders to support why we would recommend to do it. So obviously the rough, I'm just gonna start at the top and list these off. That's okay?
Give everyone a second to get in front of them.
Sure. So the must do are the things that are obviously beyond the useful life, being that they were designed, let's just estimate anywhere from a 20-year to a 30-year lifespan, and we're looking at 47-year lifespan for some of those systems, just to summarize them. But all of those specifics are included in the comments.
Well, can you give one to the press?
So the roof replacement is at the top of the list for the must do, again, that being 47 years old and having some leaks and ponding. The government center windows, we're only recommending to replace a total of 4 in the must do. Those are windows that have been identified as frosting over or leaking. All of the others, as we can see, are well beyond their useful life, but those are in the I believe it was the smart to do. Yep. So the last category. Yep.
The price on the roof, is that the 30-year warranty or the 20?
That's where we would, it is a 20-year.
Oh, that's the cheapest one.
Yep. But there's flexibility within the total budget where we could prioritize things to get that in if it's a high priority. Those are the decisions that we talk about in design. Then looking at the ADA toilets, we separated those out in the pricing to give you some knowledge and flexibility. If the customers are frequenting the main level, those costs are separated out. So as you can see on the top price, it's the lower level and level 2 toilet upgrades. And then we have the second item of ADA toilets on the main level. The next item is the ADA door widths. We have a total of 18 doors throughout the building, and these are defined as the customer department entrances that they may be using to go in and out of a department. And as we get further into design, we would refine to determine exactly which doors are most important. The chilled water, this is where we talked about, this is your cooling for the building, and we had called out for that DX control system to be built into a new air handling unit. So this is the higher end recommendation by LHB that is included in this price. Heating system would be your ventilation system. This would get you those VAV controls for all of your temperature controls that Nate was talking about. That is one of the main reasons that the ceilings would need to come down, is that ventilation upgrade. And I apologize, the heating would be the boiler system upgrade, which ties into that ventilation piece, but they are separate. The head end, building automation system head end, and the next item, the building automation system distribution, those go together. And those would have to be done as part of that boiler system and ventilation system. The next portion, our next page, I believe, is the water heater replacement. That's just upgrading it. It's currently electric, which is it's inefficient On energy usage, we would be going to a gas water heater. And it is also beyond its useful life. The heating water treatment, this is for glycol and filtration system on your boiler. It helps extend the life of your unit. So it ensures that it lasts that full 30, I believe it was 30 years life expectancy. So it's more of an insurance policy and a maintenance element, so that really should be done. Power distribution, this is upgrading power requirements to support your new mechanical systems that would be part of your boiler and your heating. And your, ventilation. And then replacing the generator, obviously that's well beyond its life and it's had several failures. Security system upgrades, this is where we talked about the card readers and the zoning of the building for safety and security of the customers and the staff. The exterior site lighting, we would recommend 4 light poles and 4 pole-mounted security cameras at the staff parking lot to improve that safety of that corner of the site, area of the site. And then lastly, on the must-do, the chases, we would really want to capitalize on the opportunity while the contractors are in to open up those chases, investigate the condition of the pipes, insulate them, and ensure that they're not going to be leaking anymore. So that summarizes the must-do recommendations of scope. Any questions?
The total of must do,
Don't have a copy.
is that what I see in front of us, 5 million?
The red number, yep.
Brad, you just go ahead and ask questions.
So ADA door upgrades, 18 department doors at $7,000 a piece. How does that come up to $207,000?
That is only for the cost of the doors. There's also additional demolition costs and soft costs. So one thing to note is that with each of these numbers, there are soft costs built in. Soft costs would include your permitting costs, your construction contingencies. There's an 8% inflation factor with the market that we're in. Numbers are escalating, as many of you know, quite quickly. So we're trying to forecast the worst case scenario to ensure that we have the proper budget.
Could you explain again, so we understand that this is an architect giving us budgets, and this is for trying to develop, can you kind of touch on that before we go too much farther on why we're developing scope of work and when do we get real numbers and how does that work?
So we're in the master planning phase. So we're trying to help you define where you want to go and moving forward. With that, we do a very high level estimate to help you establish your budget and set your priorities. Some of those may end up being in the base bid of scope, meaning that you know you need to move forward with them. Some of them may be alternates. So when you go out for bid, it gives you flexibility where depending on where the bid numbers come in, if they come in high, you could choose not to accept some alternate scope, which might be on the smart to-do list, or if they come in low, it helps you stick within your budget and spend the dollars that have been allocated. So we are in the master planning phase. This is at a very high level. Out of our 5 meetings and our site visits and our research of the report you already have, these are the things that we feel confident in making a recommendation that you consider moving forward with. The next step is once you say, yes, this is a budget we're comfortable exploring, we would go into preliminary design. And that's where we increase our team of 5 up to, let's say, a team of 10 to 12. And we start diving into the details of the design, asking more questions, having more meeting with users, having meetings with you to define all the elements within each of these line items. We do a cost during that phase again. So we would refine these numbers and get very more specific to exactly all the details which make up the values. These levels are way up here and we start getting to here. And by the time the next phase being final design, we put even more detail in and those numbers go out for bid. And then we have that next round of confident numbers to ensure that your bonding and your financing all align with where we set the original goal. So it's a long process and the goal would be to try and get drawings out for bid yet by the end of this year.
say the generator was natural gas, so it's single fuel, it's not dual fuel?
The generator's the current, but we would be recommending a natural gas generator.
The only fuel?
Yeah, so we can do a dual fuel at this level. It's just a minor detail in terms of accommodating. The only accommodation with a dual fuel obviously is on-site storage. It's something that we need to work with on the authority having jurisdiction, if that would be a requirement regardless. If your natural gas supply is not considered robust enough to be a single fuel.
Those are things we would look into in that next phase and meet with
Yep.
the local. All right, keep going. So the next list is shorter. It is the recommended scope of things that are probably smart to do, but you don't have to do. Water softener. There's been some talk in our meetings about the possibility of needing a water softener. I believe some tests were just done or scheduled for this week. So LHB we haven't seen the results this week. They're coming back this week. So once we get those back, it may be determined that that is not necessary and we would not recommend to proceed with that, but that is in the works. So worst case scenario, we did list that as a possibility. The next thing on that list is the government center ADA stair and elevator upgrades. You are grandfathered in. You are not, unless you modify those stairs or the layout of the building significantly, you are not required to bring those up to meet current code. However, we did provide an estimate, and this would be to add the handrails, minimize the spacing at the guardrails, and then add the elevator signage. Moving on
So the recommended scope, can you tell us what the total was at?
recommended scope is 111,930.
Not needed right now.
Not needed. Yep, and that includes soft costs, and inflation as well. Any other questions? The smart to-do list. So this is a list that LHB would recommend that you're capitalizing on the fact that all of your building in the existing government center is being opened up by contractors. It would be phased so that we would be moving departments and the contractors would move throughout the building, having staff move out. And that's a whole nother strategy in itself. But you would be able to capitalize on everything being exposed. And this is the list that we would recommend you consider because they are past their useful life. As we talked about fire alarm system replacement, that would go to a full enunciated system with a fire alarm panel. Data cabling replacement would be upgrading from a Cat 5 system to Cat 6. Government center lighting. So the benefit with the new LED technology is these LED panels are anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick. So we don't have to worry about the height above the ceiling. They're very easy and the cost has gone down significantly on those. So that's total building upgrade. Along with that, yep.
And that doesn't include any rebates or anything we would
That does
get.
not. So the rebates, that's a very good point. The rebates will come off of that value. The government center control upgrades would go along with the lighting. You can't upgrade with the amount of fixtures being replaced. You could not go through and keep the existing switches as they are. The replace existing exterior windows. So this is all of the original government center building windows, except for the 4 that are in the must-do list. So these are, obviously, they don't have as good of insulation, so you would be improving the insulation of your building by going with a higher, better quality glass with today's technology versus what you have now. So that would also be a benefit. And while you have the contractors in each department, it would be less disruption as well. Building automation systems. So this is upgrading all of the smart technology in your current human services building. Those systems are newer, but they don't have the same technology controls that this building would have. So this number is to upgrade your newer building to match the same control system that this would have, and they could talk to each other, and you could then manage and maintain them the same way. So that had to do with the trend data of how you control it, your scheduling of how your systems are controlled.
and it does end up saving you energy because you can refine how the buildings operate.
Yeah, so do we have our own we have another mechanic room for that addition? So all that whole system is already independent.
Yes, but the system's new enough that we can add on this building automation system to those
Sure.
pieces of equipment and make them smarter than they already are with this technology.
And we'd eliminate all the pneumatics on that end also. Compressor, everything else.
Can you expand a little bit on that scope of work for me so I can understand what would be for 300?
When he touches on the pneumatics, they're all operating off of that air compressor control, which tends to have leaks. It has a higher maintenance requirement, harder to find parts. Buildings across the country are being upgraded to a digital control versus the pneumatic air control. So this would get your human services building up to speed at the same level that the replacement of this building would be for the smarter technology, for the more refined.
Just technology, there's no infrastructure, you're not taking ceilings down or very little bit?
Very little. You'd have to go to your VAVs, change out your controllers.
You already have VAVs in that. But you don't.
You just have to get to each VAV and then you've got to do the controls everywhere and you're going to eliminate the compressor.
They go to electronic.
Sure.
Do you anticipate using any part of our vacant old jail building during the transition?
Yes, I think that was touched on that. That is a good opportunity. Yeah, it would save on the disruption of the staff and you could set up an area and just move people in and out.
Mentioned.
Yeah, everyone will have to get moved out with the extent of the ceiling model in this building. Good point.
The current fire alarm just alarms there's a fire in the building.
Yes.
Doesn't zone it at all.
Nope, it's just a light.
This new system would tell you where the fire is. Would it monitor that area then and tell you what the temperature is and all this?
I believe so, Nate. That's correct. And I should step back. It does create an alarm, like a loud noise, but it doesn't have voice evacuate or, Nate, do you want to?
Yeah, so on the older systems, it was a zoned system, so you could have a whole wing of a building of a floor on just a single zone, whether it's on the signal line with like a smoke detector line. So anything on that line could trigger an alarm, but that could be 25,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet of a zone, so you don't know exactly where it's at, as an example. So the new systems, every single smoke detector, every single pole station has a digital address. And then it's mapped digitally so that when you pull that pull station or a single smoke head in an office in one corner of the building goes off, it automatically starts flashing on the control panel, and you can actually have maps pop up on a computer and tell the first responders exactly how to get to that location where that fire was detected. On the annunciation side, you'll have strobes, because that's a code requirement for the visual side, but they also have audio. And we've gone to the voice style systems because not everyone knows what to do when they just hear the loud noise of a horn strobe. So what the new speaker systems do is it has a dedicated message, and you can choose that message. As an example, you can say, attention, attention, there's a fire in the building, please evacuate to the nearest exit. The nice thing about those new systems, you can also leverage that for security purposes and for public address. So I typically will tie in that fire alarm speaker system to your phone system so that if you wanted to, you could dial a 3 or 4 digit code and then do a public address to everywhere in the building or a select zone in the building as you see fit to program. So from a security standpoint, that's really nice because you can tie that in with the card access, lock down doors, so that if you had a shooter event, you would hit a duress button and then all doors would automatically drop. And then again, you could have either a coded message or just a blatant, there's been a security breach, please stand in place and await further instructions. So these new systems are very integratable and give you a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do and leverage them for.
And they also monitor the hazardous areas, and if you had a leak of sorts, or it was hazard.
Yeah, if there's code required hazards that we need to monitor, yes, that would be part of the system and part of the alarming system. Those sometimes tie into the building automation system. So again, just like the fire alarm, the building automation system with these new digital controls, you'd have IP addresses on everything, so you know exactly where that hazard is occurring, to what level that hazard has occurred, i.e. how many parts per million, and trigger an alarm. So there's all kinds of information and sensing that we can accomplish with the new technology and the new systems.
There's a lot of training that goes involved so that the staff that are maintaining it know how to utilize that new technology.
Yeah, I would make that note. That's a good point. And all these newer systems, a lot of them, sometimes it's a one-time upfront cost, but there'll be ongoing software maintenance costs along with the physical parts and pieces. So that's part of the training that you would receive during construction, at the end of construction. Then there's that 1-year warranty period where you shake a building out and you have additional training opportunities with the contractors. And then after that, the expectation is that all the people that need to be trained are fully capable in those systems. And then they'll be training trainers down the road in maintaining the systems.
All right, there's two last things on the smart to-do list. The service windows and department opening, these are the customer service windows at the main level, being one at the deeds treasurer's office, one at the land information department, and then one at the county clerk's service window. And then we would also open up the two departments between the deeds and the treasurer so that they could share the service counter. So that has something to do with, I assume, some staffing or, shifting of reception.
I got a question. So what you're saying is the public will come in, they won't actually walk into their offices. They'll do their business at the window.
In the lobby. And then we would improve wayfinding and signage as part of that, so they know exactly where to go. Sometimes we do that even with a colored soffit in the lobby to just highlight it, and in addition to signage. And then last thing is the existing county boardroom. We provided an estimate for a layout of new furniture, carpet, paint, and then not significant technology upgrades, but reconfiguration to meet the new layout. And the total for that smart to do is $1,808,620 with soft costs. So the section below that is the project summary totals. It takes the totals from each bucket and lists them together. It lists LHB's design fees as we proceed. Those are the costs that we would invoice to design everything and manage construction through the design through construction, and then the unexpected work contingency. This is an owner contingency to have a bucket for any unforeseen project scope that as you're working through the project that might come up as surprises or requests along the way. That would be in addition to a construction contingency that are built into it. So for a total, when you combine all of those, you have a total of $7,698,279.
So is the soft cost just a percentage of everything? Is it the same percentage?
It's a 10.
From
I don't know the total percentage of the soft cost. I'd have to get back to you on that. I do know there's a 10% construction contingency included in there. I'd have to look back at what the total is because you also have your some reimbursable expenses for things like your state plan reviews, your permitting expenses. Think of anything else that might fall into that. There's some overhead and profit costs from the contractor for your general contractor to manage the project. And then they also have general conditions, which are in that soft cost. And that would manage some expenses that they have just to on the site to manage the project. I can clarify what the total percentage of the soft cost.
One question. So is there a cost to moving staff around that is in the budget, or how does the county deal with the cost of helping people move? Do you manage that?
Yeah, we would have to put that plan together and move people just moving people is the expense, but there would be some expense associated with moving.
Is that in this budget?
Equipment.
That is not in this budget, and that cost would be, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of that cost would be just if we're going to utilize the old jail, it's making sure we have computers and that set up there. So the cost isn't significant. We're not building an office, just so they can have another workstation. And then that would be with the designer and the contractor phasing that on how we move. And whether we use the old jail or the East Conference Room upstairs as we move department by department, floor by floor, up and down.
Couldn't we use some of the plan we had for COVID during that process? Because we had people working from home, didn't we?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And
That's another option too, because we know how to do that.
Right.
Ready, the perks that we have up there. Flexible. We can work, back to your comments about those costs. We want to help you manage the total project. We were focusing more on these scope estimates. I will work with Mo and Vince to make sure that we have that so there's no surprises.
I have a question on the energy stuff. Could you give me a feel for sort of what we might be saving in these efficiencies with the more efficient equipment, sort of maybe a percentage compared to what we're doing now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but we do have programs that calculate we would need a lot of information in our design, which we can do and help you understand. We would need to get information from your local utility, Nate, other.
Yeah, I think in general terms, there's since you're not actually upgrading. A lot of misperception happens when you don't have a cool building and then you add cooling. So 9 times out of 10, what happens is that your building energy use actually stays level. It didn't go down, but you added all the extra comforts that you didn't have previously. With you already having chillers and everything, you should see a reduction overall. It can be anywhere from a 10 to 25% energy savings. I know from a lighting perspective, as an example, going to the LED fixtures, usually I cut the watts per square foot in half. And that's without any controls factored in. So when you start factoring in controls, you'll save about another 10 or 15% from an energy standpoint. So lighting as a good example, you can cut energy costs maybe close to 60% from what you currently have.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
I would imagine you could get some estimates from some similar projects that are in existence.
Definitely, and I think Nate, that's where Nate has more experience with that he mentions the 10 to 25% total project savings.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know if we included it in our proposal, but we have our own energy group and our engineers that do these modeling. Is a energy model that they take your current building and model it to show what your savings and output would be. Another element that's not a sales pitch here, but we do also help buildings and people that manage them think about how they operate their systems. And we have certain programs similar to, what is some of those software programs that they utilize to manage that we can help you think about the hours that you operate and the hours that you're utilizing the systems to ramp up and ramp down. And doing simple things like that help you save money. So there's different layers of it that we can help you analyze.
Don't you agree that after we go through the design phase, we're going to have opportunities, like you said, to upgrade a roof system, add more insulation, change windows, depending on how our budget goes. We're going to have an opportunity to talk about more energy efficient options as we go through the design.
Yes, as we keep refining the budget, we can once we know the core scope, we can keep these things on the list to analyze the next round of budgeting and the estimating to see where we fall in line. And then we can keep those things on a priority list of alternates that we can still design it and put it out for bid, see what the value is. And then sometimes we don't like people to spend their contingency before the project's, started or anything, but those contingency dollars are sometimes able to be utilized towards the end of a project to make some of those upgrades.
And I would note on the the best way to save energy is not to use it in the first place. So typically we do like to focus on the envelope. So it would be the roof, the windows. In this case, we have the existing building structure, so we're not touching that per se. But the better that envelope is, the smaller the mechanical system design needs to be. Therefore, you're saving not only ongoing costs, you're also saving upfront costs. So something to factor in with some of these decisions on the priorities. And as we get further in design, we can help give you those kind of percentages and understandings of how much would you save both upfront and then operationally if you focused and spent a little more dollars on the windows, on the roof, to downsize those first costs on the mechanical systems.
Kim? Don't we have Johnson Controls? If we paid them off and did that, but don't we have all their studies and what we're paying for electric, heat and everything? We
Your local utilities would be willing to share with.
we paid for that study. We
Okay,
paid
you've got it.
$30,000 for
Okay.
it, but we should have it. It was supposed to be ongoing.
That's over with now.
Johnson Controls is over.
That study is.
That study is done.
Yep, that was through 2019. So that study actually ended in 19. We have all the data on that.
But we have the data to help them do this for efficiency set. So that part is here.
How long was that study?
5 years.
So that we should have we got a baseline to go from. What we could say, yeah. So we paid for it once. Why keep paying for the same thing?
The comment, I understand everything you said for a change about this project. Okay, I appreciate what both you people did because this is pretty understanding. Very well explained, not a single stutter.
Thank you.
Like that.
Presentation.
Thank you for your input several times.
So are we going to, while we're still in committee of the whole, are we gonna discuss financing? We're on the project, right, Chad? Is that your turn?
Yeah, I mean, I can go over.
Let's talk about that.
So what we really need is their preliminary design budget, which presently, if they could start proceeding, they can deliver about August. Doesn't give us our firm numbers, which don't come back until bids are in like December or January. But it gives a good number that we could say, okay, we're gonna borrow this and no more than this. Then if the design comes in more, we could fund it another way. If design came in a little less, we could pay back the borrower. We have a couple options. We can look at the locals. I reached out to the locals and setting up some calls with them to see what kind of rates they can give right now. And then we also have the capital market, which requires a resolution and some work. Capital market rates are incredibly low right now and are anticipated to stay incredibly low through the end of the year when we met with our advisor last week. And when I say incredibly low, I mean 1 to 1.5% on borrowing rates on the capital market. We could fund all the project with borrowing. We could fund part of the project with borrowing. Our debt payment drops from 2.4 million to 1.3 million next year. Unless we prepay our notes for that gap. It drops, once that debt load drops and the levy drops, then your debt levy, your property tax levy for debt drops significantly, and you're faced with raising it again if you borrow at a later time. And the only option to keep it stable is either to borrow this year, and we've got the $2.4 million plan, which presently where we sit, we could borrow up to 20 million over a 7-year period, structured however we want and stay at the 2.4. If we don't borrow this year, then that load drops to either 1.3 million on January 1st or 1.3, and we prepay 1.1 million on our note. Prepay your note early. What happens is that note expires much earlier. Then you go from a big reduction to a cliff for your pay, for what your debt is.
So we have some notes existing at a higher rate.
Our notes are at I want to say I want to say they're 2.75 right now. The existing notes we have, I think, is what our notes say.
Highway building is 2.7.
It's 2.7, 2.75, something like that.
Is there an opportunity to refinance and we do this project to get the better rate?
Our note does not allow us to refinance. Our note allows us to prepay without penalty.
That was with Bremer, right?
Right. So the only way you could do it is we could prepay all of it and then.
Oh, I see. That's how you do
And then
it. What's the
borrow.
balance on that debt?
Roughly, I think we're around 7 million, but I'm not gonna swear to that. Sure. Off the top of my head, I think it's.
All about finance.
But we have some COVID money coming. I mean, can it be used for this?
So I'm actually reading a lot of emails between finance directors right now. We've been exchanging this all day. We know how to do the calculations. We've now figured out, we think, how to extract the data to start doing the calculations. This is the way it works. Doesn't necessarily free up all your ARPA funds in the first year. You take 20, you take a floating average of growth, and then you apply that average against what the Fed said the growth should have been in 2020, and what it was reduced by because of COVID. And then the gap in that percentage is how much revenue loss you can show. When you show that, you can convert up to that dollar amount of your ARPA money into fund balance. So if we show that we should have grown at X percent and we grew it at Y percent, and that caused us theoretically $700,000 in revenue loss, then we can convert 700,000 2020 and 2021 to fund balance. Do that each year for 2021, for 2022, for 2023 to absorb all of it. Some counties are bigger. Some counties saw more significant revenue loss. I'm looking at rough numbers now, but I'm not going to say what they are because there's a lot more calculations involved. We just figured out how to pull funds. But I'm not sure we could convert all 4.2 million this year. I won't know that for another week or two.
And I think the other part though is since infrastructure we know for water, sewer and broadband is allowed, that the water portion of this project could be covered by our funds regardless.
And the broadband.
So is sales tax a big
Replace
figure
Chris
in
Brown.
that growth? Our growth in sales tax has been expanding beyond our budget.
But it's not just sales tax, it's all our revenues. So we have to take all our revenues from all sources, pull out all federal funds, and then I have to do a 5-year rolling average. And then you apply a formula to that average to show what the feds say your growth should have been as opposed to what it actually was. And if it's less than what it should have been, then you can consider the dollar value between what should have happened and what actually happened as your loss in revenue growth.
Been growing by over 5%.
Well, our sales tax, but our sales tax is a small part of our revenues.
Sure.
But yeah, our sales tax went up, off the top of my head, I think our sales tax is north of 6%.
I mean, that's the denominator for the total package.
Right now, looking at the basic numbers, I think we have what we qualify as some revenue loss, federal formulas. I just don't know how much of it is.
So I think the idea is that, are we going to leave this meeting tonight? Is the board going to decide? Are we going to make a recommendation on the scope of work? Then do we have an idea of guidelines? Are we going to make a recommendation? I think what staff wants to hear is, how much do you think we can finance, or how much do you want to say, do we take a portion, a certain amount out of general fund and then a certain amount out of this money if it's doable someday? But basically staff wants to know what is our project budget so we can keep rolling. Correct. And we're not looking to finalize exact details on financing, but just scope of work and the budget tonight, if possible. Correct, Mo?
Correct.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. If you wanted to, if you like all the scope of work on here and you want to set the budget not to exceed 7.7, and then as we move forward into the design and closer numbers and reel that back in, we still have opportunity to not do some of the.
Reel the scope in, and we could reel in the decision on how do we finance it down the road.
Correct.
Is that correct, Chad?
Yeah, I mean,
Because you told general government something about if we go to market, what was your timeline? You were concerned about a
we
timeline.
really need to be able to do a resolution and go to market. Ideally, no later, we talked to our agent, no later than by September, we need to be able to go. He said he could get it done in a little tighter frame than original. So we could have resolutions done and out to market in September, so we could have borrowing wrapped up by November. But I mean, what you're talking about is you say, we want to, we want a budget not to exceed this. Then when we get to August or whatever with the preliminary design and the more firm numbers, you can say, okay, we only want to go market to borrow X number of dollars. We're going to fund the other dollars this way. So I think what LHB needs is what is that number that you do not want the design to exceed, and what is the present scope that you can always scale back that you do not want it to exceed as they do this final design. Is that right?
Or we could prioritize those alternates like we talked about, where we're still proceeding with design, and it would be put out for bid, but that's when you choose.
Could you explain a little bit on the alternates, give the board a scenario if we didn't do the alternates and we had to do them a couple of years down the road or 5 years, the impact it would have on just the cost a little bit and the impact to the building and the function?
Obviously, there's all the detailed elements of the things that you gain when you improve and add these elements in. So they're all unique. But what you need to think about is that when you rip out these ceilings, that's the element that gets thrown away if you choose to come back and do it. There's some elements that they might be able to take the tiles out and fish, things through the grid, but it's less efficient. It costs more labor. Things get damaged. So it is a lot easier to take everything out and do it at once. So if you were to come through your building and replace all the ceiling tiles, I want to say in the ceiling systems at a later date, it would add about 200,000 in today's market to replace those ceilings. Depending on how many pieces you do separately, that could escalate if you kept coming back and needing to tear out the ceiling and doing it again.
One of my experiences in these kind of projects is I like the idea of doing everything up front now because of the conflicts with, you have HVAC guys running ductwork, have cabling people, you have electricians, you have pipe fitters all fighting for the same space. But when it's designed right now, it's going to be up to the architect and design team to say, you go here, you go here, you go here. If we don't do some of that work now, they're going to come back and have to go in different places, I'm guessing, to get the project done.
Well, they have something different.
Definite efficiencies, which I didn't touch on, and the fact that you're taking advantage of the fact that you're having one contractor manage, general contractor manage those subs. They're also, besides using our set of drawings to guide them, they're communicating at the same time to clean things up and make it more efficient. Because there might be things up there that you want to take out while you have it done too, to make sure everything's packaged. The one thing I forgot to touch on is how an alternate works. So you have your base bid package. We take out smaller components that are easier to price for contractors in smaller scope. So we're working in Owen, Wisconsin right now on a storm shelter. An example of that is they're building the storm shelter. They're using it as a gym. The bleachers are a nice to have. They don't have to have the bleachers within that gym. So they're pricing that as an alternate. On bid day next Tuesday, they're going to get the base bid. They're going to see the price for the bleachers. If that base bid number comes in low and they know their total budget, they may choose to accept that alternate and then include it in the contract. But they also have that price if they choose to fund it. Or sometimes it happens they find a different way to fund it, even though it might end up being beyond that original budget, because it depends on the priority.
All right, so I guess out of committee of the whole, when we leave this, we got another subject to do in committee of the whole, but I think the idea is someone's going to come out of committee of the whole. We're going to need a motion in a second, and then we can discuss it in a little more detail on what we're actually gonna vote on tonight, hopefully, right? And leave it at that for the construction for tonight, or you guys? good with that?
How about for finance? How about, what should we have reserved? Are we at like 50%?
In terms of the unassigned general fund.
Unassigned?
Yeah.
Right, 50.
50.1.
In our rules of order, we're at, what, 20 we're supposed to keep? But for finance reasons, we want more.
Yeah, I mean, so.
So I mean, we could, but there's some there that we can use.
So how much could we use if, and without changing the levy? How much cash can we use of the county's money right now?
We have roughly 13 million at 50%. You know, you probably got 6 million you could use there. Just depends on where you want to go to. So 50%, our policy says 20%, 50% sounds like a lot. We're middle of the road with other counties on our fund balance. We're not ahead of people. We're Midland with that.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about too is, I'm not a genie, right? But the interest rates are about as low as we've ever seen them for this type of work. So is it better to, you know, finance now than next year, the next year when we have to do things like the Justice Center roof and so on? Might that be the time if the interest rates go up to say, you want to finance it, or do we want to take it out of our general fund and pay for that then? So, I mean, those are things you could just consider.
And I know we're doing a comprehensive trail network plan, and we have $1.5 million in there, but I suspect there's gonna be some recommendations that are gonna exceed that dollar too.
Yeah,
coming.
and just to give you guys an
Oh, yeah,
example.
everything can go.
Yeah.
So we had to break out federal funds received for the last 5 years as part of this calculation. To give you an idea of how much artificial one-time money came in 2020, our federal funds received for 2016 through 2019 varied from 4.1 to 4.7 million. For 2020, we had $8.7 million. So I'm just saying that because I am a naysayer, is there's a lot of artificial money, so you don't know what the economy is going to do. Fund balance is there, and we're only middle of the road because we don't know what the economy is going to do. And I do know, you know, Maggie and I had long discussions about 2008 through 2010. We had $5 million in arrear and property tax and things like that. So just throw that out there.
So do we have a policy that 20%, we should maybe raise that a little bit?
Well,
So
and
that we don't spend it or see that it's.
right. And the auditors, I've asked them when they give the audit report this year to give a presentation on comparables, what other counties are sitting at. Because I think that gives you guys a clear picture of, you want to adjust that 20%.
But if you said we could, let's say, we're at 40%, double what we are, that's $1 million and a couple $100,000. And if we could use another 500,000 of that ARP money, could we realistically round up $1.5 million, $2 million and of our cash to put into this and not have to borrow, let's say, 2 million? Would that affect?
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, like this year, just from the health fund and the child protective fund, we're putting 1.5 million back to the fund balance because of this federal money. So that doesn't mean their budget's going down next year. It's not. It's just, it was artificial money that offset.
When you're gonna get a sales tax report on June? So far, it's been either stable or up.
We were up, when I told general government, we were up considerably from the prior 2 years so far this year. But stimulus money's over. Let me say that. And I heard today, consumer spending plummeted on large goods and those kinds of things. Restaurants went up, but consumer spending on large ticket items plummeted. And large ticket items drove our sales tax last year.
On this Wisconsin counties, I'll get a report in July. And so far, they've been really warning us that our total package without.
All right, I think we all learned enough, right?
When do we do that? When does that happen?
What's that?
When do we vote on that 20% number?
And December is when we now do the finance and.
Okay.
So at budget time, we can have an opportunity to raise that up.
Yes.
We should be looking at that to do that.
And that should be through general government.
Yeah, and you'll be provided the data during the
We
audit.
could put that on, we could put that on our agenda.
Yeah. So that's something that should be done, yeah, sweet.
So the other item in committee of the whole was the fairgrounds, so we want to have Malia give an update on her conversation. We decided to keep this at committee of the whole, and Chad's going to go first.
Yeah, I'll do. Kevin, pull that one up that says. Load up there. All right, so I reached out, I sent a statewide email to their finance directors and deputy administrators saying just, I asked some questions and I got 30 responses from 30 other. I'll briefly go through that. These were the parameter survey. I sent it out on May 28th and collected responses through June 8th. 30 counties responded. The data collected, what did each county budget for the fair for 2021? Does the county own the fairgrounds? What additional supports provided to the fair operation by the county? So ownership, excluding us, you got 10 of the 30 counties that responded don't own the fairgrounds. 20 of the 30 counties that responded do own the fairgrounds. This is short. All right. Then budgeted funding, I plotted it. Going from 0 to 100,000. See the county call outs. What each of the counties where their funding was. For example, you've got places like Fond du Lac was 0 down along this line. Up the door, they're at 88,000. And you've got Polk County's call out right here. So the purpose of that was just to give you an idea of 2021 funding as opposed to where we are against the other counties that responded. This is where we stand with factual. Questions on that?
Just one, out of that 80,000, how much was used? 70-some thousand.
Of what county?
Well, our county.
Of the 60-some thousand we provided.
Yeah. What?
I haven't looked to date where we are. Have we already done the roofs over there? Oh, we've already done the roofs on that.
Not on the roof yet.
Okay. So a big part of that 30,000 is the roof on the admin building.
Correct.
And then the last piece, you have to look on your packets to see it because it's really not, you can't chart it. Additional funding. These are the responding counties. You kind of go through them because what they did is they provided like ancillary things they do in addition to their straight line funding. Got a lot where the only additional is extension provides support. Got some like Burnett, they donate 3,000 to each of their 2 fairs. But you've got I think of something else that's this one. Marathon provides the fairgrounds to the Fair Society for 2 weeks at a time of fair. The Fair Society pays for park staff that will provide staff that are free.
What is extension will provide support?
Mostly 4-H stuff and the ag stuff. That was a recurring theme among a lot of the counties. One that I did find interesting was Jefferson. Jefferson's attempting to get the fair off the levy. They gave them like 15,000 this year. But one thing that the Jefferson finance director pointed out is the total operating budget of the fair is 1.245. And the county is only funding less than 20. I remember when you get the money. There was, I did send this out back to the finance director because I had a lot that said they're presently reviewing the relationship. Like, Jen.
Does anyone not have the packet with the letter with the highlights on the very top? So at the last county board meeting, you asked me to reach back out to the attorney for the Fair Board, Max Newhouse, and I did that. I did that several times by email and a phone call, and ultimately, if you look at the very top packet, first is the original letter that he had sent. And then right after that is a short one-page letter where he indicates to me because I had asked the question very broadly, is there any set of circumstances where your client, the Fair Board, would consider coming back to the table and working on a relationship going forward in partnership in support of the fair? And so then this letter came, basically saying the only thing that his client is looking for is a response to those demands in their original letter. And that's the 1,500 seat grandstand in the original footprint of the old grandstand instead of the 3,000 seat grandstand that they had asked for. The $403,000 one-time lump sum payment, no longer having any contribution for the grandstand from the fair itself. They had originally, I think, made a promise of $400,000, so that was withdrawn, and turning over the fairgrounds, at least the portion owned by the county, to the fair for $1, and then really severing all ties. And so in response to this email, just to be sure, or to this letter, excuse me, the email that I sent is the very last in that original packet, where you can see I'm asking him to correct me if I'm wrong. It's in bold, correct me if I'm wrong. By this letter, I presume that your answer is that there are no circumstances. In other words, the county couldn't offer up anything that would cause his client, his current client, the current Fair Board, to come back and engage with the county in any way, shape, or form going forward. We've had several other emails after this. He has never corrected me. He has never said, yes, you're right, but he's also said, he has never said, no, no, you're wrong. I did invite him to join today's meeting. He respectfully declined. And I did send him, in addition to that, the WebEx information in case he wanted to just watch. So that's where we are. My understanding from Attorney Newhouse is that the Fair Board, it doesn't matter what the county could offer, other than responding to those demands in the original letter. That's the extent to which his clients have any interest in working with the county going forward. So what did I do in order to determine what next steps you might consider? I did a public record search of every single email from any of the Fair Board members to any county email address. So that's any supervisor, any staff member, anyone. And I started that for the entire year of 2020 up until present day. I think the last search I did was about a week. So I have all of those emails, and I've included a majority of them in that third packet. I put them in a chronological order. I tried to think of another way to organize it, and chronological can kind of help tell the story about where we started in January 2020 and where we ended abruptly with this April 29th letter from Attorney Newhouse. If you go back to that original letter, well, actually, before I do that, I want to note that I did not exclude any emails that would support the factual allegations made in the attorney's letter. And I have the original search if anybody wants all of the emails. I simply excluded ones that were extraneous, had nothing to do with it, or duplicative, because you know how there are replies, and so you'll have a whole bunch of them. So those are the ones that are excluded. So in the emails where you see, for example, Mr. Norby reaching out every week saying, any update, any information, and there's no response from the fair, that's because there was no response in the email. It's not because I excluded it from this. I was very deliberate and went through painstakingly to make sure that I included everything that is relevant. So if you go back to that letter, and we touched on this briefly the last time, but I thought because of how egregious I believe that the lies are in this letter, you need to see it for yourself. You needed to see it for yourself. Because I love the fair. When my kids were little, we would go there every year. I remember my youngest daughter wanted to adopt a cow, a baby cow. She wanted to bring it home. We lived within the village limits, so that would have been bad. And I don't think, I'm not sharing this because I have any vendetta against the fair. I believe, as the attorney for the county, when we're looking at negotiating major issues like this, high dollar things, you should have all of the information so that you can make an educated decision. So going back to the letter, I've highlighted things and I put numbers. I believe it's 1 through 8. There's also a 1-page document in between the 2 packets. And while this is not exhaustive, if you look at bullet number 1 that I've highlighted on the letter, the pages in the packet, and they are numbered 1 through 71, that will contradict what the attorney has alleged in his letter. You can look to these pages. And this will just be the first page of each section, like if there's a 3-page email, I'm just listing the first number and not just every single number. So that's just to help you kind of navigate it. But I just want to go through briefly each of the bullet points and describe what you're going to find when you look at the emails. So the bullet point number 1, the county does not inform the Fair Society of applicable public meetings, nor have they asked for input or updates from the Fair Society other than by email prior to a meeting. You are going to see multiple emails where county staff informs the Fair Board of upcoming meetings, asks them about input, asks them for an update on how things are proceeding when it comes to the MOU. And you're going to see that there are very, very few email responses. And at some point, there was an email response from the president of the Fair Board saying, we're going to meet next week. I hope to have an answer for you. And it wasn't until months later that we actually had an answer, despite county staff reaching out periodically, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, every other week, to seek an update. And again, you can look through the documents yourselves. I won't start reading those. The second bullet point that's on the next page, and it combines these two. This is about the sports ag complex and the allegation that there is some link between wanting to say, hey, we're going to take away the money we had contemplated for the grandstand and the fair and use that as seed money for this sports ag complex. And there's no emails in here to support that or refute that. But how can you prove a negative? I can tell you, and I am telling you the honest truth. I have never heard any staff member make that suggestion. The sports ag complex was a concept that was thought about by the county administrator as maybe this is a really good idea for something for Polk County. It was not until there was an issue with the CUP at the fair and folks in the within St. Great Falls, the neighbors of the fairgrounds said, we're worried about noise, we're worried about crowds, we're worried about what is being proposed at the fairgrounds. That staff thought maybe there might be some benefit to the fair. Let's ask them if they want to be included in this idea. The sports ag complex is something that I think the administrator has talked about maybe 5, 10 years out, some long-range plan. So any allegation that there was any by staff deliberate way to try to say, hey, let's just take money from the fair and use it to fund this other idea. There's no staff member that I'm aware of, and I've been involved in a lot of these discussions, who has ever said that. Now, I don't know if a county board supervisor has maybe thought that and said it to somebody else and started this rumor, but if you can see, even in the letter, they call it roundabout behind the back of multi-hyphen word talks. And that's just simply not true. Okay, bullet point number 3. This is the allegation that the county has completely dismissed the idea of the MOU, of the old existing MOU, and will accept no negotiating. Again, I want you to look through this packet and see how many times we're trying to solicit any response. We had an opening where we provided an offer. And then as they correctly assert here, they did send us an initial response in August, even though we were told that it would come much sooner than that. So we offered, I believe, January. August, we get their response. In the letter, they claim we've never acknowledged that we've received this nor responded to it. And what you're going to see in the packet is that after we received this August counter offer, we had a meeting. In fact, you're going to see handwritten notes by county staff who took notes at that meeting where the request was for what is the business plan? These are the things that remain outstanding. What is the business plan? And what is the Fair Society's concept of how they are going to have some skin in the game financially going forward and make sure that we have a successful fair? And so to say that we've never acknowledged that, again, is either disingenuous or an outright lie within this letter from the attorney. We had a meeting in September. You're going to see the notes in the packet where the idea of the business plan was talked about, and we all left that meeting with some work to do. The next bullet point is number 5 on the very bottom of the next page, and it carries over onto the following page after that. This is where it's very important to read the words in the letter. The proposed grandstand project that was initially proposed by the Fair Society is not based on the long-range plans of the Fair Society. It does not fit into the layout of the fairgrounds. The proposed project became a county and Cedar Corps controlled project that was designed and laid out with what the county and Cedar Corps wanted, not what the fair wanted. You're going to see in this packet emails where it is the Fair Society outlining what they want for the NTPA track, what events they intend to have, what they would look for. There's emails in detail between the Fair Society, the Fair Board members, and Cedar Corps. It is not the county dictating or suggesting that they should do any particular thing. It was not the county that suggested a 3,000-seat grandstand. And in fact, until we received this letter, there was no indication that they no longer wanted a 3,000-seat grandstand. Now they just want a 1,500-seat grandstand. The county has invested money in the planning and the engineering and how and looking at the facilities and having this grandstand move. If they only wanted a 1,500-foot grandstand and had told us much earlier, we would have been able to save a lot of that time and money, and the county's money that's already spent. Bullet point number 6. This is where there's an allegation that the county doesn't honor its obligation to pay for things. You're going to see many emails in the packet where the county is saying, hey, we need the information so we can pay the invoice. We need the invoice. And time goes by and we're not getting it. And
even have some Fair Board members saying, I know that the other Fair Board members are not getting you what you need. I know that the other Fair Board member has had months to do it and hasn't. You're going to see that. You're also going to see where we are improving projects, including the roof, including trees, and including things where we are paying for those projects and improving those projects. Number 7, this kind of goes back to one of the previous bullet points, specifically number 5. This again is an allegation that the application for a conditional use permit and all the uses planned for the grandstand and the fairgrounds was really a county and Cedar Corps, that we did it in secret. That's the allegation in this letter. That in fact, the Fair Board wasn't consulted. That the county and Cedar Corps went secretly behind the Fair Board's back and applied for this conditional use. You're going to see in the emails that that is a flat out lie. It was the Fair Board that went to the Planning Commission meeting, not the county. Cedar Corps was also there. And again, it was the Fair Board, including the president of the Fair Board, in several emails giving 100% authorization for Cedar Corps to submit on behalf of the Fair Board the application for the conditional use permit. And so that one, again, there is absolutely no truth, and you'll see that in these emails for that allegation. The final allegation is again about paying for things. This is in one of their asks. And this is, they're asking for the county to pay for things that they haven't paid for, or finished projects that they haven't approved. Again, the documents will speak for themselves when it comes to the number of times we have had to ask, do you want us to go out for bids, or do you want to go out for bids? Who wants to pay? Do you have a grant for this, or is it something that is going to come out of our budget? If you look at the language in the old MOU, the one that they're claiming is still controlling, it requires agreement between the fair and the county on these major projects going forward. And when the county is asking repeatedly for information, for invoices, how can we move forward on those projects? But you'll see that the admin work was approved. You'll see that the trust work was approved. You'll see other projects that have been approved. And so that is, again, just not demonstrating the facts. Now, my hope is that this letter does not represent the entire Fair Board or the entire Fair Society. This is just the information that was provided to the attorney from maybe one, maybe a handful of Fair Board members, and they just had the information wrong. Either that or they are deliberately lying. So having said that, going back to what their ask is, what the attorney would like is a response in writing from the county to those asks, to the request for $403,000. They want it for the end of this year. As you know, if you were to address something like that, it would require a 2/3 majority vote, because it would be amending this year's budget. Most of the items in the acts would be doing that. And so if that's something you want to contemplate, we would need to appropriately put that on an agenda in the future and have a resolution and have that 2/3 vote. Or you could, in your letter back to the attorney, say, we will put your asks in the budget process, and we could have conversations about them over the next several months as we go through the budget process. So then it wouldn't require a 2/3 majority if an authorization to say yes to any of their asks were to go through a regular budget process. So I could put that response in a letter. We did put a closed session on the agenda. I don't think we need it unless you wanted to get into any questions about enforceability of things, legal liabilities, that kind of thing. I don't think we're there yet, but I did just in case we got down into that level.
Any questions for Malia?
Question, and I'm not sure if it's but did any county representatives, staff meet privately with Cedar Corp and officials from the city of St. Falls without the Fair Board's knowledge? Or
Actually, that's a good question. So in the packet, it looks like it is page 42. And they're back to back, so some of the page numbers are kind of in the corner. This lists Cedar Core's timeline of all of the meetings that they had, where they were, and that kind of thing, and the dates. So that's what, I never met with Cedar Core, so I don't have any personal
I
knowledge.
can answer one of those questions, Fran, for you, and it's open. We were, remember, I got requested to be at a meeting when the fair board member, I think it was the president, authorized for the fairgrounds driveway to be blocked, right, with some barricades because of an issue. I don't even know what their issues were, dog park and some dumping or something on the property. And the mayor and one of their officials came up here, another supervisor. We had, I believe, the fair president. I don't know if Tracy was there or not, but it was, I think it was two of them, or one of them, and two of the fair board directors. And we discussed in that meeting what was going on, right? And we had it right upstairs, and they requested this to kind of see if we could clear the air. And I know I did ask, or I did require Mo or someone go move the barricades, because the fair board actually blocked the fairgrounds with barricades. And I think they rented or asked for the highway department to bring a piece of equipment down. And then there was some inappropriate action from a person in the community dragging the barricades down the street and damaging their property. And it was a mess. And so I can tell you that's one meeting I went to that was never a public meeting. So at least I know that much.
Are there other supervisors here? Representatives from the city of St. Croix Falls or Cedar Court, or anybody out on their own? Any lone rangers here?
I have met with, I live in St. Croix Falls and I vote in St. Croix Falls for
And you represent them.
the council. I expressed last month that my sense is that the people in St. Croix Falls love the fair, accept it being there, they like it as it is, they probably don't want it to be expanded into some big deal noise-making thing outside of where it is now, so to speak. I have had discussions with people on the city council and with the city administrator about their reaction to the additional use permit application and other related matters. And I probably would continue to have some of those discussions. I've gone to some meetings of the citizens group that's gotten together in St. Croix Falls and have heard them out. I think Janice, or maybe it was Cassie Moline Swenson, was at one of those meetings, made a presentation about the fairground. I live about a block away from the fairground, and I personally have a very strong feeling support of the county fair. I would hate to see it disappear from the scene. And I think rather than going through, and I appreciate that this responded to a letter that the attorney probably hadn't seen everything that's in this packet here when that letter was written. But I think we ought to be focusing, does the county want to have a tie to the fairgrounds, or would people here be comfortable if the county did not have a tie to the fairgrounds? I don't know that request funding and all that sort of thing are within our expectation or budget or anything like that, that we would make that decision if we want to be involved first. If we don't want to be, and I know prior to current administration in the county here, it seemed to be for the fairgrounds like pulling teeth every year if they were going to get some money to do something. We did give them, I think, was allocated. I've said before that this 2003 document and the 1975 document don't use the word memorandum of understanding. They're written as agreements, management agreements. That we have, I think, well, I've been a supervisor, the top year, I think we allocated 75,000 for electrical conduits and so on. And first, I don't think that was totally spent in the year it was allocated, but some issues about how it got spent and so on. But there's been, I think, as I observe it, neglect over the years on building maintenance and so on and so forth. A lot of things that could and should be done. But first off, I think we should make a decision whether we want in or out. And if we do want to be in as a county, we should work on some way that would make people feel on the fair board, feel more comfortable working with the county.
My question to you would be is, that's what you want, but what I heard the letter says is the Fair Society doesn't want our,
Well,
right? Isn't that what their attorney?
That's what they're saying.
Yes.
And I think there's some people that got royally ticked off in the process that went through.
I understand that.
And,
but I'm just saying, when you hire an attorney though,
lawyer,
I understand that, Mike.
This may be something that can be healed if approached in the right way, but maybe a threshold question, do we want to be?
I can tell you a couple of calls I've had was, would the county board just postpone this until after the fair? And I believe the fair board has an election. And give them an opportunity to get through the fair, have a new election, and then revisit this thing at budget time.
We could do that. One of the hiccups that's happening right now is there's some invoices that need to be paid. And I've been directed by their attorney that I can't communicate directly with their clients, so I can't contact anyone that's on the fair board to ask these questions. But I mean,
sure,
that part needs to be cleared up. But I could send a letter saying this is the plan, the county is going to wait.
Are they already in the budget? Isn't it, are they budgeted money already? Did they spend all the budget? So these invoices should be covered.
Right. The issue is, for example, because I'm communicating with you, not the fair board, I can share this. We've got an issue regarding an insurance invoice where in previous years there was liquor coverage, and we need to know why that's no longer a part of the invoice, a part of the package, whether the fair is saying that they're not going to have any alcohol there this year, or there has been some other change. We haven't had that answer, and I've been directed by the attorney not to ask his client the question in order to pay that invoice.
If we budgeted, how much money did we budget this year for? 68,000. Did they get it and they spend it? Did they not?
So I think some of it, and I think Mo might.
But they get the money, or do
We are paying invoices that they send to us.
So we nickel dime. So we're doing their bookkeeping for them.
So part of the budget is the county budgets $11,000 for awards. We have $30,000 for a CIP for the admin roof replacement.
Okay.
We got water and sewer costs that we pay the utility bills on there as per the MOU. And then there's also a very small portion of discretionary maintenance. That's the one we go back and forth, and we got trees to do or this to do, money there we go ahead.
Did we pay that insurance bill last year?
All right, Doug has a question.
No, I just want to have a follow-up on Mike's.
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I was back probably 4.5 years ago. We were right in the room above here. Fair board was there, Dana Frey was there, and I'm not sure if any supervisor would have to raise their hand if they were there, but I was there. And the fair board brought in placards, or I call them, or of the new grandstand. Fair board had reached out to grandstand builders. I think they even drove to South Dakota, North Dakota, somewhere out west, and talked with the company about what could be done and how you could put a roof on it, roof later. That isn't it wasn't much of an option because the builder said that it's too costly to do it.
Now, was that when Dale Wood was here?
Yeah,
What?
Wood.
Is that when Dale Wood was
Yeah.
here? I was at that meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm just showing that this started way back then. And Dana Frey, I told you last month, talked to me in the hall and said we already had $1 million allocated. Well, Dana Frey retired. Then we got Jeff Dugie as an interim. And I was down at the fair when they tore the grandstand down. I think, I'm not sure if Jeff was there that day, but he had a meeting down there with the fair board and with anybody that wanted to come.
He was there.
Yeah, so I was there and watched it go down. And all I'm getting at is the timeline. Then all of a sudden, everything changes. We get a new interim administrator. We get a new administrator. He leaves. We got another administrator now, and all the progression is changing because there's not the same people here. You know, you've got you've got new staff. We gotta have a new corporate council, and it's all changed. And now it seems so. I've never seen it so negative till tonight. I don't know where we're going with this. It's like we're fighting a lawsuit that I think it technically should be a discussion. And yet now it's making the fair board look like they're a bunch of liars. They're this, they're that. I guess I'm really kind of offended by it, the way it's going. I know it's the fact, and you can say that, but the fact is it never progressed the way it should have started. You know, where
Doug,
in the end.
Doug, I could kind of fill you in a little bit too, though, is, you know, because I got asked to, because I actually supported all these new ideas, and I was trying to be a liaison for the fair board and push equestrian issues out there. We got invited to a meeting at the fairgrounds where the fair board, I believe it was the board, had different groups come and say, hey, what do we want the fair to be? And then this idea came about, and maybe it came out of financing that, hey, the fair is being asked to have a business plan, and is there any shared revenue? And that's when the plan started growing is, okay, someday we need an equestrian center because the horses, the amount of kids there at 4-H, there's not enough horses, and the horses are under tents. Then it came back 1,500 seats, wasn't probably going to be big if they needed 3,000. I know, but you'd say where it started. Then it was like 3,000 seating isn't going to fit there. Then the board approved hiring Cedar Corp, and then it turned into from $1 million project to a $2 million project.
I never heard that the board approved.
Oh yeah, we passed a resolution to hire them.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Yeah,
Board.
the board did. Yep. Because of the infrastructure and the bigger grandstand, we wanted to lay out a good plan. So the whole idea kept growing, and maybe it got too big for everyone and people are now pulling back. You know, I agree it should be negative, but at the same point, when you have attorney write a letter like that, before we make a decision, we better know all the facts, and we better know now we're dealing with an attorney, because now Corporation Counsel says we can't talk to the fair board. So we are in a very awkward position.
Who's we? Can't talk. Who did he say can't talk to?
County staff.
County staff can't talk to the fair.
You're not staff, I'm not staff.
Right, we can talk to them. We have a representative, Warrendahl's our representative for the fair.
So that.
Yeah, and I talked to Vince about this. I says, okay, what's my duty?
Sure.
Okay. My duty is not to be involved in their business. I'm just advisory back and forth. I haven't had a hell of a lot to say about this whole thing. I don't go into their closed sessions, you know, but I hear what's said in open session.
Sure.
And there's a lot of problems here. That's their side. You know, we're listening to our side.
Yep.
Okay. There's a lot of problems here. There's been interference. There's been stuff that I've heard said at their meetings. So there's two sides to the story here.
Absolutely.
You know? And my job is just to liaison if something needs to be.
Sure.
Or this is way over my head. I mean, and I asked Vince what you remember I called you. I said, no, what's my responsibility as the representative? It's not my responsibility to go to the city and talk to nobody there. I'm not going to talk to nobody there. You know, I'm not going to be in their closed sessions. I'm not going to get on the side of it. I'm just there to
So what I'm hearing is that maybe we should quit talking, Doug, like you said, let's quit talking about the negative stuff. Now all the facts are out. Everyone's got the emails. Now we know the facts. And I think that's kind of where staff talked to administration about, and I was in the room and I agreed. Before we can start fixing this, we all need to know what this letter means. And we all need to make sure, but now it's time to move
What I've
forward.
heard from citizens.
So let's talk about fixing it. Let's not talk about.
No, I know, we've got to figure out a way to fix it because the citizens are angry that there's even a thought that it could close.
Who says it's going to close?
You can see it in the room, for Christ's sakes. All this discussion, the way she talks with the attorney.
I got calls on my phone, wanting to know, we're gonna have a fair this year.
What does the county have to do with whether the fair goes on? Last year, the Fair Society shut the fair down because of COVID. It wasn't the county that said shut it down.
No.
It's not, we don't run the fair. We just fund part of it.
You know, listening to, sitting in their meeting there, you know, they usually have the county's equipment down there to help with the poles and that kind of thing. I mean, they're hiring contractors to do that work. Look, you know, there's a complete breakdown.
Right.
Their understanding on that side is nothing's gonna be paid. I think Chad made the comment, you know, that we've broken off, how was it, you said, broken off all financial, I don't know what the words were, but it sounded as if we weren't gonna pay anything there during the litigation or whatever. So I mean, most people are down there trying to run a fair.
Still planning on providing the bleachers, still planning on paying the invoices. We're still planning on.
Having the sheriff's department there, right? Sheriff's going to be there.
Oh, when we're talking about a breakdown in communication, this letter from this attorney came as a shock to us. If you look at the emails, you're going to see a very stark turn where I think it was in late January or February of this year that the president of the Fair Board, in responding to an email from Mr. Norby, who said, hey, how did the meeting go with the Plan Commission and the CUP? And the president replied, it went great. There were a lot of good questions. Now we've just got to put some things together. And then a couple of weeks later, when one of the multiple times when we asked for a follow-up, hey, any movement on the CUP or the MOU, there's been such an absolute breakdown that we're hiring an attorney. We've reached such an impasse. So that was the first that we were aware that they were hiring an attorney. We thought, you'll see from the emails, good, you're hiring an attorney to help with the negotiations on the MOU. Great, this will maybe move things along. And then this letter came. So I have nothing.
Let's try to come up with some solutions how to mend this thing.
Wait, Mr. Chair, can I just, on that theme?
Go ahead.
So at our last meeting, it seemed like we had a pretty robust conversation and significant number of supervisors were supportive and positive about the fair. And one of the things that came out of that was this, put 3 people in a room from the fair and 3 people or whatever in the room from the county, different than who has been involved to this point, and see if they can work things out. Did that get proposed to their attorney or to the Fair Society? What happened to that idea? What did that get anywhere traction, Malia, or did you even ask them about it?
I can provide the emails that I sent. I told him to watch the WebEx recording of the meeting. Told him that there was extreme support for the fair, fiscally and emotionally and in every other way. I mean, everyone that spoke had nothing but good things to say about the fair, that the county really wanted to know what it might take for the Fair Society to come back to the table, not back to the table to negotiate a new MOU. I mean, they could have said, go back to the old MOU and the old ways and give us money. He didn't, there's nothing that we could do. So I opened it up and said, clearly there is a lot of support for the fair on this board. And the county wants to continue in a partnership if there is any way, shape, or form that his client would be willing to do so. So I can provide those emails as well. And I said, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. So there was never specifically like, could we come up with a subgroup, a working group to see if we can get us out of this spot?
His response was the only thing that his client wanted was a written response to the demands in the original letter. They didn't want a proposal of any other kind for any type of working relationship. He communicates very well with me. I don't think he's, hiding anything. He's being
Okay.
very open that his client at this point has no desire in any way to go forward.
Hey, Sharon Kelly?
The president of the Fair Board called me today. She was very offended. She watched the WebEx meeting, our last meeting, and she was quite offended that it was mentioned to have three different people, different people involved to sit down and discuss. She was very offended by that. She was not open to that at all. She took quite offense to that. And I have to tell you, reading this and listening to the conversation I had with her today, it's night and day. It's like you're in two different worlds. I mean, it's totally night and day. So it's very confusing for me being a board supervisor, because it's a 180 what I heard from Janice today compared to reading these emails. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
All right, Supervisor Olson's got a question.
I'm not gonna get positive yet, but I think supporting the fair is one thing. But supporting what they're asking for in this letter is another thing.
Yeah.
I support the fair 100%. I mean, my kids have went to it, my grandkids have went to it. I would tell anybody the greatest thing my parents did is not put me in 4-H, so I had to go. But they're the ones, the Fair Society is the ones who have put us where we're at today by this letter. They're the ones who are telling their attorney, hey, Malia or county staff, you can't talk to them to even get a bill to pay. So a month ago, I sat here and said, both sides need to sit down and grow up. It is, I apologize to county staff. It is not the county who needs to grow up. It is the Fair Society. I mean, bullet point number 5 in here, they admit that they are the ones that asked for it, and yet they turn right around in the very same sentence and say it does not fit into the plans of the Fair Society. It does not fit into room. But they admit that they're the ones who asked for it. So the county turned around and spent probably tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayer dollars to hire Cedar Corp, do a study. And now in a letter from an attorney, when sides can no longer talk, they're saying, oh, we didn't mean it. Forget that. Now the fact that you've spent tens of thousands of dollars doing a
Can you
study.
tell us, we talked about this tens of thousands. What did we spend on Cedar Corp?
So far, through July, from July 19th to current, $89,856.58.
That's the planning. Sure.
So they're the ones who brought that plan to us. We've spent $90,000. And now they say, oh, just forget it. But I hear them say, well, hey, you passed these resolutions that they've got all in here, move forward. Well, guess what? Apparently the county or the Fair Board passed something that said, we want a 3,000 seat grandstand. We want a double pulling track. But it's okay for them $90,000 later to back out. It isn't that I don't support the fair. I don't support the Fair Board.
Man?
I have a question and then I have a statement. The question is as far as paying invoices go, okay, and we want to follow our legal advice not to have communication or whatever. Can we talk to the vendor to clear up the issue and the questions? Can for example, the insurance issue, can you talk to the
problem
vendor?
is it's the fair's insurance, so we are not a party to that contract. We're just a paying entity.
You're saying we have a requirement to make sure we have proper coverage. And we don't want to pay it if we don't have proper coverage. Is that?
Right. I believe that the main issue is to make sure that we're getting the coverage that, because we're insured under it as well.
Right. We need to be covered properly.
But my concern is if I ask the attorney all of these questions, he is then going to turn around and and bill the fair board for every email I send saying, hey, can you ask your client about this invoice? But maybe after tonight, after we respond with something in writing, he will then give us permission to communicate directly.
Yeah,
I just,
Go ahead, Fran.
I just have a statement for what it's worth. Okay, so different people have different communication styles. We talk about the difference between night and day. I've sat through meetings where I think people were bullied and insulted and criticized. And I can't speak for them. I don't know how they feel. But communication styles, sometimes everybody interprets things. People's perceptions are their reality. And I don't think that criticizing and insulting is going to get things back on track. I certainly don't have all the answers in the situation, but I just don't think that that's going to probably get anybody anywhere.
Let me ask, Leah, so these invoices that are out, right? We could find a way to pay these invoices. We budget them, we could get the roof done. I mean, I think the board wants to keep moving on whatever our obligation is. We have budgeted. The board wants clearly to keep paying this year's budget. Right? There's a consensus to keep paying, right? I would think. So there's a consensus there to pay the bills. I believe personally, we need a cooling off period. If we pay all the bills, what is that going to do to affect the fair this year? And wait till the fair gets over and wait till they have an election and send that message to them to come back to us in a few months. That's not going to affect the fair. If we pay all the bills, what else can we, unless they want the cash right now, they need the cash. And I go back to what the original agreement was. They sold the fair to us for $1, right? So they say they want to sell us back the fair for $1. If they want the fair back for $1, does the board feel okay to, I mean, that's one question that could be answered tonight. That's one of their questions.
I mean, I still would say from an open meetings law perspective,
We need to go into closed session for that one?
no, you would need to say transfer of fairground property and have that voted on specifically.
But
I mean, you can have a
we can talk
consensus,
about it.
right, you can have a consensus for us to draft that resolution. Absolutely. Then bring it back.
Because they want the fair back for $1. They want $400,000 in cash, and they want the new grandstand built. But we don't know the dollar amount or the spec of the grandstand.
No, I do think that Mr. Norby did reach out and ask for an estimate on if we did do that.
Yeah, Cedar Corp put together an estimate for me for a 1,500 seat grandstand. It's approximately $310 per seat, around $465,000 for that.
We could say we want to give them their grandstand that we always promised them. We'd sell it back to them for $1. I mean, I would think we always said we want to give them their grandstand, right? Even if they want to back out of the deal, we would budget, whether we own the property or don't own the property, we're going to need to put back a grandstand. We said we were going to do that.
Saves the money that we're doing for rental.
Right. We've been talking about spending that rental money every month or every year. And then the question would come down to, are we going to give it the fair back to them with this $400,000 for whatever they want?
Like I could, if you wanted to draft a resolution for consideration at the committee level and then bring it back to the county board, doing those two things, knowing that if this board wanted to address the $403,000 ask, it would require a budget amendment so that it could either go through the budget process and be a simple majority or draft a separate resolution.
So
with
do we
that.
want to vote on these 3 items at some point? Is that what we want to do, or is that what
Well,
we
you
have
wouldn't
to
have
do?
to vote on them. I would just, if that's an idea, I would draft that resolution and bring it to committee and then bring it back to the
But
board.
would it be better to do 3 separate items
Do it three
instead of
separate,
one package to give us an opportunity? I don't know. John?
Regarding that $400,000, Mike, you mentioned the condition of a lot of the buildings and that. We're all ashamed of the exterior of some of them buildings, the siding, the roof, the painting. If we're gonna give them $400, 400,000, I would like to see what's gonna be done, how much it's gonna be cost. And we're all willing to get
Fix it up.
Yeah, to fix it up. But, if we're just gonna sign off, are we continually gonna say, holy cow, that is,
When you
it's
give them the
not
money,
just, we're ashamed.
if you give them the money and you can't guarantee the work's gonna be done to the buildings, what's gonna happen in 10 years from now when we put the new grandstand for, and they're short. If they don't have the money today to do what they want to do, and they need the county's couple $1 million now to move forward, at some point, are they gonna need another
The
couple million?
experience I had on the board is they didn't have the money to fix these up as the time went along.
Right.
So they sure as heck aren't gonna have the money in the future. So I wanna see if we're gonna give $400 or 100,000. There's gotta be a commitment that where it's gonna be spent and what's gonna be done.
Brad.
Yes, I'd like to see us just take your cooling off period, go through the fair, because it's gonna happen 6 weeks from now, no matter what. And let the fair board decide, tell us down the road if they want to stay on this track or not. If they elect the same board, we know exactly the track they're on. If they elect a different board, they're perhaps on a different track, and they would be willing to come to the table. Board today is apparently very unwilling to come to the table. And that's fine, but then it leaves it in the hands of the fair board if they want to stay on the track that they're on, the track that we're both on. And that's only going to cost us realistically, I don't know when the election for the fair board is, but I think I've seen somewhere September. It's going to cost us a month after the fair, so we're.
Your consensus,
Almost 3 months out.
You want consensus to say county board wants to pay the current bills as budgeted, but wait until after their election to deal with any other issues.
Yeah, and everybody knows that it's public knowledge right now that we're willing to put the grandstand up and look at some other things. So that's fine, that's out there. The fair board knows that up front, but cool off, get through the fair, get through their election, and they can decide which way they want to move forward.
John?
I got one more question or comment is my consensus is my time listening to the open sector, like you, I've never in anything else. But my consensus is that I would never believe that everybody on that fair board signed on to that attorney, hiring that attorney. What would you think of that?
Actually, I just want to correct you. The attorney wrote in here that the county should be aware this letter was reviewed and approved unanimously by the board of directors of the Fair Society. And then it has an asterisk.
See that board of directors now, that
Hold on,
is.
John. Hold on, let her finish it.
Ms. LeBlanc abstained from the vote at my advice.
So how many people signed on that letter? What does that
I don't
mean?
know what the makeup of the fair board is, so I guess.
Tracy, could you tell us that at least?
15 people on the board.
15 people on the board.
So it says unanimous, so I would presume that anyone was there, but just like the board, there might be some absence.
Election in November.
Elections in November, not September.
Okay, November.
What if they want to wait till our county board
Yeah,
election? Please
yeah,
don't tell that statement.
they might not get nothing. Right now, we're all in. Yes, Steve.
I just got a comment about what Sharon said and what you said. I was supposed to be at that meeting that they're talking about. They considered hammered on and talked down to.
I was there.
And I met them outside because I thought, well, I was supposed to go to the general government or the executive, and I had them mixed up. And both of them were in tears when they walked out of this building.
Was that the fair board members?
The two fair board members were at that meeting, met me at the door. They were both in tears.
What meeting was that?
They,
December 10th, 2020.
It was a board meeting?
It was executive
Executive committee meeting.
Well, but check out.
I would like to make a motion that we put.
So I don't know that we
You
can.
have to take
Well,
time.
I'm not making, I just said I would like to.
Oh, okay,
I'm not making a motion.
okay,
That we have IT pull up that December 10th meeting. I was at it.
sure.
And show it on the board so all the citizens can see it next meeting.
So we could do that at next month's meeting.
I'd like to do that.
So I mean, that's the, like.
Anyone could look at it. Anyone could look at
You
it.
look at the timing of the letter from their attorney. I mean, this is just my opinion. I was at that meeting and I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody and I'm not trying to, or anything like that. There were statements made that, in my perception, would be offensive to me. Now, whether they were intended to be that way or not intended to be that way, that is in the speaker's mind. But given the timing of that letter and when communications cease, I think that might have something to do with it, just in my opinion.
All right, but
I mean, you were there.
regardless,
No, I wasn't there. I was supposed to
Oh,
be
you were
there.
supposed to be there.
But I
Okay,
had the
that
meetings
was it.
switched up, so I met them at the door because they were on the way out.
so they were crying and they were upset. Okay, whatever. Let's figure out how we're gonna fix this than worrying about someone crying. That's my point.
There were very positive emails after that meeting in January where between the president and Mr. Norby about the CUP and the meetings, there were very positive emails. The only intervening thing that I could, and it would just be a guess, was when county said, hey, you want to be in on the talks about this potential sports ag complex. Even though there's no nefarious intent, as I've explained before, I feel like that maybe was the shift in my thought. I was going to go to that meeting, and there's emails, I don't know if I included those, where the fair president said to our administrator, no, only you can come because of social distancing, and yet it was a huge room and there was all kinds of space because they didn't want me to be there, which is fine.
No, they didn't want me there.
But I feel like that shifted something for them.
No, and I go back to this. We're not here for feelings and fuzziness. We're here as a business. We're here to protect the taxpayers and to do the right thing. So I have a real problem with someone crying at a board meeting or walking out of a building saying, oh, you hurt my feelings, when we're talking about spending $2 million. I've been a business guy about this project from day one, and I supported, had plenty of conversations with their board, and I sat in plenty of meetings, and I know when something goes upside down. And I can tell you what, it wasn't the county making it go upside down. And if it ever needs to come out, every detail, I have no problem explaining it. But let's just move on and let's try to fix the problem. And I think talking about people crying in their feelings and being a bully, that's a perception that someone takes when they probably are in the wrong and they don't know how to get out of it. So let's just figure out how to fix this. This is ridiculous that we're spending this much time on it, going back and forth on what someone said to somebody. And let's fix it. That's what we're here for. I'm not here to give someone a hug. It just, to me, it's ridiculous as a county board guy sitting here thinking we got to hug someone at the front door.
Sorry, I don't necessarily agree with you.
I know you
Your
don't.
personality may be different than mine.
Totally
I
is.
believe in being compassionate.
But I know when you were the highway commissioner, you never gave me a hug when you turned me down for a permit when I was mad. So I could have started crying, Mr. Warren.
Yeah, I'd have comforted you.
Yeah, you would have. Right with a kick in the ass out the door.
Well, everybody's got a job to do, I guess.
Exactly. And that's what I say. Let's get this
Let's get on
resolved.
with ours then.
So. Right, get my ass
Can I still take
door. Excuse the language. That's off the record, please. Highway commissioner never kicked me. But, so we're in closed session. What do we do next, Malia?
You're in.
I mean, we're in committee of the whole.
Well, I suppose if I can, once we go out of committee of the whole, if there's a consensus that I let the attorney know that we are going to wait, or I could say,
We're gonna keep paying their bills.
we will pay their bills, we'll
All the
honor our
things we committed
commitments
to.
to this year. We do need to be able to communicate to get some of these small things answered. And that
we will, as a part of our budget cycle and process, continue to look at all of their demands.
Does that include the roof?
Yeah, the roof is already in the budget.
The roof's in the budget.
What is all in
Will
the
it get
budget
done,
this
though?
year to fix? Mo, what is the fair expecting the county to fix this year for them? What are they needing done?
You know, it's just mainly the roof.
That's it?
There's a line item, it's in there, the bleachers, the awards, water and sewer bills, and then there's
Pay the insurance.
a couple thousand, for discretionary maintenance that hasn't been identified yet.
Let me just.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
On the 1,500 seat grandstand, there was a quotation with the resolution, I think, that was adopted for $1,300,000 in November of 2018. And I think the attachment that you did both for a 3,000 seat bleachers, 1,500 feet. That's 3 years old, but that was in there and it had a dollar amount on it.
And the 2018 resolution was a 3,000 seat. There was not contemplated because the fair did not ask for a 1,500 foot. So that resolution and that dollar amount was directly related to the 3,000 foot seat.
What I'm saying is the document from the bleacher company had two quotes in it. One was for a 3,000 seat facility and one was for a 1,500 seat facility. So I don't know if Cedar Corporation has to do all that again or
Right, the quote from the bleacher company, because we haven't got to that part of the design yet with Cedar Core. That was a proposal that was brought forth to the Fair Society that they reached out for those quotes. In the county, we have to go through our budget process for RFPs and building a structure of that size.
And Mike, I was sitting in those meetings, so I'll just follow up. That dollar amount too that they had for the fair or for those bleachers, there was other things that we had to deal with was the soil.
That's true. I'm just saying that we did have a number.
Yes, we did. That was from a salesperson to the fair. Brad.
So it's all fine and dandy that we're gonna pay the bills, but we can't talk to the Fair Society. How can we pay them? I mean, right now we have the problem with the apparently no liquor license.
Not a license, insurance for.
Okay, well, if you don't have insurance, you're probably not gonna be serving. So if we can't talk, how do we fix that when we've got a fair that's 5 weeks away and probably needs, that's all I'm saying is when we can't have a discussion with them, it's hard to pay some of these bills. It's hard to know the simple answer. I mean, it isn't a complex answer. It's the simple answers that we have no way of knowing, just like they have no way of knowing because they can't call us and say, hey, have you paid the insurance?
But I think Malia can resolve that by saying the board wants us to pay the bills for what we have allocated this year. Have a consensus with that.
Do we have we already chosen who's gonna do that roof and stuff? Are we ready to go on that?
We've gotten all the bids are in on it right now. We're just on hold right now.
Because,
No repression, no litigation.
oh,
I make a motion to go into open session.
Yep. Second, all in favor?
Yeah, we need to.
Okay.
All right, so we need to, under 18 now, is there a motion? Do we need a motion to give you direction? We didn't go into closed session.
Yeah, no consensus or I can draft a letter, I can bring it to a committee, whatever you'd prefer as far as.
What do you guys, does anyone want to give direction on what happened in the committee of the whole from Malia? Having the minutes for what we want her to do? Steve?
Mr. Chair, I have some input on that. I'd like to see that resolution.
Amy, hold on a minute. Steve goes first here.
Sorry.
I think she should be able to designate a liaison to get those things squared, right? So the letter would say, county intends to pay in these things. The channel is highway commissioner. I mean, he's staff, I understand he's staff, but
Yeah, it's
You know.
been, yeah, either.
It's gotta be somebody, I guess, could be me too, but.
Mo or Chad, you're saying? Because Chad pays the bills.
He writes the check.
Hey, Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I would like also in the resolution that Malia is gonna draft, if you could work with, Supervisor Pritchard and Supervisor.
Excuse me, Amy, excuse me, there is
Yeah.
no resolution gonna be drafted,
We're talking about a letter?
a letter.
Oh, I thought Malia had proposed that she was gonna come back to a committee with a resolution. Okay, no?
No, not yet. We're thinking
Okay.
about waiting to do that through the budget process.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple right now.
Okay. And do that later. Okay.
So Warrendall, your motion is to direct Malia to write a letter for the Fair Society to work directly with our finance director and our facility director to get the bills paid on what's budgeted this year for work to be completed. Is that what you're saying?
That was a lot, but yeah.
Well, simplify it.
Yeah. I'll pretty it up.
Pretty it up.
I keep going back to the roof. Does that go back to include the roof then?
Sure.
Okay.
That's the roof. Any outstanding issues the fair has, the county is,
For this year.
we are making that request that staff finishes up all the work budgeted this year. We have that as somewhat of a motion. We got a second on that by Brad. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I think our administrator, Malia, can handle some of these smaller things, might turn into big things. But that's why we have the administrator, and why he gets a big buck.
Supervisors announcements.
Well,
What do you have?
we better go through our building.
Oh, yeah, we still got to deal with that. Yeah.
7 million, that's a little.
What does someone want to do on the construction project? What do you guys, does someone have a motion?
My idea is that we should go for the whole thing at first and then see what we gotta cut when the real estimates come.
Second. Second. Any other discussion on that? Amy?
No, I would support that.
Okay, all in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carried unanimous. All right, now supervisors announcements, right?
Yep.
Anyone got anything they want to share?
Well, I could,
Want to deal with?
I just gotta have you quick on our highway convention down at Wisconsin Dells. Kay and I went on behalf of the highway department with Mo. And if you see on the board out there, I've got a design of a Route 65. I designed that and had the copy shop in Osceola, made me like 50 copies. We handed them out to all the highway people, the administrators and everything. Highway 65 is set for complete road bed and paved shoulders for 2024. They do not address none of the, what we call suicide hills and the dangerous intersection on Church Road, that's complete blind intersection. So that is our push. What we do is to do right. Very well.
Yes, thank John for doing all that. I do have one more comment, and maybe the sheriff can address it, because you guys are going to go home tonight and realize that we had someone just trying to disrupt our public hearing, and he was arrested, an individual out in front of the building tonight. And I got to thank the sheriff's department for being here and being aware of it. Sheriff, do you have any comment about it tonight?
I don't.
Okay.
It was,
We'll leave it at that. But I just want to acknowledge that we did have someone here to disrupt our meeting tonight during public comment.
And the reason for that is at our human services meeting this morning, we had a letter and different supervisors got a letter on that from this individual. So it was appropriate for you to make a comment.
And I want to thank the sheriff's department again for being here at county board meetings, because it is very touchy out there. Thanks. We have a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye. I think that's your longest meeting.